Hello, hello. I'm hoping everything is going to be working here fine. The Ecamm had an update, so I'm just making sure that everything um, works okay. Last night I was actually doing um a congratulations, Glidus, by the way. Glidus had a breakthrough moment. He released a video. Everybody's been rejoicing, and apparently he's been telling everybody that there's a million coming tomorrow and the day after, which seems really odd and ambitious. But I'm glad that all of this is off your shoulders. Um, I had a quick quest. I had a quick question on the wall. Um, that I wanted to get to. The Could the wall be made of the black obelisk stone? Um it depends what you think the black obelisk stone is. Like and I wrote about this in the prologue fan fiction, is that the wall doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense that it's not sublimating. And so the only way for the wall to maintain being there over years and years and years, unless George R. R. Martin is just thinking magic or just doesn't think about it like science wise, which is unlikely because it's George R. R. Martin. There has to be some sort of refrigeration unit, like restoring it in some way, whether you think it's magical or whether you think it's um, scientific. It's something has to recreate that ice. And he talks about, digging holes and having the holes fill in over time, which is what would happen, with some sort of refrigeration unit. I mean, like when you get frost in your freezer and things like this, the frost grows. Um, so one could say, okay, what technology is creating this refrigeration? Um, could there be some silicon chips, silicon kind of ideas in there? So if you think that the black obelisk stone is some sort of silicon technology of some sort, then there could be an aspect to black obelisk stone in there. I haven't really thought about it too much. I don't really even understand how refrigerators work very well. I do have a idea on why I think the seasons are out of whack, and it relates to the wall. There's hints of it in the fan fiction prologue. I don't want to give away exactly what I think is going on, but uh, you know, somehow I think it's all related in George's mind. I think George must at some point have thought about, like, why doesn't the wall sublimate? It's just something that his mind would think about. But could it be made of black obelisk stones? I mean, maybe there could be some silicon in there, and that could be like a black obelisk stone. Um, how's Arianne 3 going? I'm back at it. It's going slowly. It's not that far along. Because my goal was to get John Con out right before I went on vacation. Been on vacation, had zero time to do anything else. Came back, and Carmine's like, let's do some podcasts. So I did some podcasts with Carmine. I did a review of the John Con chapter. I'm gonna post that probably tomorrow. So of me going over the John Con chapter, and then Carmine and I are going to do a Last of Us review, and talk about Last of Us. And but I'm working on Arianne 3. It's going to be great. Didn't Glidus have COVID? Didn't everybody have COVID? Didn't everybody? I mean, no, I don't think I've had COVID, but I've definitely been, like, sick for. I think there's something else out there, like, that's like beyond COVID, because, like, many of us have been, like, sick for a week at different times, and people are like, oh, what about did you have COVID? And it's like, well, I tested no the whole time, and yet I was still coughing for like a week. So either I like didn't show up on tests, but you know, um, what can't wait for Preston's take on what is this Chifan Neuro. The first couple characters are let me see if I can do a copy paste. Right, what is that? Jingfan Neuro? I'm trying to Jin I'm trying to can I do a copy paste on this? Damn it. Damn it. What the hell? What's up? Why is it I don't understand. This is a technology thing, but like how's it gotten harder to copy paste? Like what the fuck happened to our society? Is it just me? Is this like am I being like totally Gen X here by being like, in my day, you could copy paste very easily. Why is it so fucking hard to copy paste? Why do these technologies make it so I can't fucking copy paste anymore? Like what happened? What happened? We used to be able to copy paste. Now we can't. The Democrats don't want that. Oh, this is like cumin like beef, a beef stir fry on an iron plate. I'm trying to think what are those first characters? What is that? Oh, it's just iron plate. Oh, okay, that's why I didn't know. I was like, what the hell? What the hell is that? But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Carmine is angry at Dragon Demands for not posting in a month. Oh, my speaking voice was totally shot. Yeah, so there are these weird things for us as um uh, like video creators, is that like everyone, like you get sick and not only is your energy out but your voice is out, and then that affects everything, because if you've recorded something before, now all of your recordings like just don't sound consistent, and it's just weird. It's also just weird in general, like you when you do videos, you have to like record stuff at the same time of day because your voice is different at different times of day. Like people that notice like these podcasts, my voice is really low because it's morning for me, and then as the time goes on, my voice like goes higher, and then it can get hoarse if I do too much. Like after a podcast, it's hard for me to record because like I'm hoarse. And so like I understand, but as long as you say to people like my voice is fucked up, like I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Man, Kyle has the in case people didn't see this, this is the the AI recreation of my face that someone did. But um I showed this picture to my wife, and I was like, besides like him being balding, does it really look like me? And she's like, deep set eyes. Like I think they get the eyes a lot. Like Carmine's been sending me a lot of these AI pictures of me, and they don't really get the mouth or chin or things or any of that right, but I think they've been getting like my eyes, my deep set eyes. Um, this is about the copy paste. Things have gotten complicated. I mean, especially on phones. It's whoa. I have to bring this down. Whoa, there we go. um. All right. Uh. Will Danny go to Qarth, Volantis, Asshai, in the fanfic? So my 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 plan For let me get to this really quick. Control C, Control V, Preston, same as always. No, that's fine. It's the highlighting shit. It's the highlighting. Not only first off, there's two things I really hate. One, I'm gonna get on this rant, and then I'm gonna get back to that super chat. Like when you select it's sometimes they just don't let you select shit. Like, let me select shit on all of my different programs. Just let me select it. And then the fucking thing is, when I put my fucking cursor on a item, please don't highlight the whole fucking word. I'm precise with my cursor. When I put my fucking cursor on something, I want to highlight that letter, that word. And then all of a sudden it's like, highlight the whole line, highlight the whole paragraph. Just let me fucking highlight. And this bugs me with Chinese characters a lot, because sometimes I just want to do a search for like one character, and it's like highlighting 10 characters, and I'm like, God, just stop it. Like, I moved my cursor this far. Don't fucking like second guess me. This is like autocorrect. Like stop it. Just stop it. Like, these assholes. Urgh. Me and McCarthy paste. Anyway, will Dany go to Qarth, Volantis, Asshai in the fanfic? I think definitely she's going to go to Qarth. I think there's a fundamental need to go to Qarth, just because there's a fundamental need for her to talk to Quaithe. I mean, you got to get Quaithe back in. Plus, it would just be really fun to see to get back into the history of that city, Vace Teloro, to get back into those dragon bones out there, Zaro. There's a lot of fun that can be an interesting things that should be like gone back to in Qarth. All the different factions, the Tourmaline Brotherhood, all this kind of stuff, the Guild of Spicers. I mean, there's now Asshai. Yeah, Asshai would be cool and all, but like, we haven't explored Asshai before. Asshai isn't really part of the story too much. I mean, there are ways you can put in Asshai. You could say, well, Jorah seems to have wanted to bring Dany to Asshai. Was there a reason for that? Or are there some people in Asshai that were interested in Dany? There are little things like that, but there's just so much more with Qarth. And so I kind of feel like Qarth needs to be revisited. And I think that if you look at the World of Ice and Fire, George didn't include anything about Qarth, while he actually did include some stuff about Asshai. And so I think he's protective of it because he wants to maybe go back to Asshai. But yeah. But yeah, I think that's the plan though. I think, like, if I were to think about the plan for Dany, it would be, she's got her Vastoth Rock chapter, she's got a Qarth chapter, she has a Return to Slaver's Bay chapter, maybe a Volantis chapter, and then maybe a fifth chapter of her like arriving in Westeros. But and that's all there kind of needs to be. So and that's 5 chapters for Dany. That's a lot. That's a lot. Which lost plotline we bring back? I'm planning on bringing back the lost religious fanatics from A Clash of Kings and maybe Elar Deem. I think that plot needs to come back. Also, there's just these little ones. Robb Stark's Lost Tyrashi Sellsword Company. I'd like to bring that idea back. That always bugs me that it was gone. In Arianne 3, Morosh is going to come back. Not that it's too important for those that don't remember Morosh. He's mentioned once. He's just a mere sellsword who was hired by Stannis. And most of his ships, if not all of his ships, like, get destroyed at the Blackwater, and so he's just why not bring the guy back? Things like that. There's a lot of these little things like that are going to be brought back. Relationship between the destruction of Hardhome and the war between the Nightfort and Snowgate. Both happened around 600 years ago. Without Hardhome, the others needed more sacrifices, causing conflict. That's an interesting idea. I haven't ever put. I didn't ever think about that kind of thought. When people talk about Hardhome, we kind of think of it being like either some volcanic eruption or something, or they found a nuke and it accidentally went off or something. Um, like we think of some like big blast, like taking everything out. Um, though, you know, would the others be looking for people there back then? I don't know. I mean, we kind of think of the others coming to get people now at Hardhome, but were the others trying to get people back then? And did they do something to to knock them out? I think we kind of think of Hardhome having some sort of similar phenomenon to the Doom of Valyria, whether it be a volcano or a nuclear warhead or something, or a magical explosion. Um, but um, yeah, I don't know. The Snowgate War. Did we know the year for that? That's interesting that it's. Let's look that up. Oh right, Queensgate was one called Snowgate. Um, yes, 600 years ago, the commanders of the Nightfort and Snowgate went to war with each other. Hmm, that's all we know. That's weird. And then, I mean, might be able to shove something in the fan fiction about this, but um, it might just be a coincidence. I mean, 100 years is a long time. Hardhome was abruptly destroyed 6 centuries ago. Something terrible happened that night. The details are uncertain. They burned with flames so high. Um, yeah. I mean, same century, but it's hard to say. I don't think George really thought about it, honestly. Carmine's like, the problem is you're using a Mac. Uh, I mean, it all depends what you're doing. It all depends what you're doing. You know, is it a Mac thing? I don't know. I'll admit that like Macs Macs do lock you out of a lot more functionality than PCs, but they're also a lot easier to use. So, um, uh, I suppose on my work computer, which is PC, I don't run into the same sorts of problems with copying and pasting. But then again, on my work computer, I'm using pretty standard programs like Excel and Word and Outlook and stuff. While with my Mac, I'm using all this sorts of different stuff, and I have my tablet and trying to use these programs like Ecamm or um, that are different. While I don't have those extra programs on my work computer, so I guess I don't know. Um, let's look at um, what do you think of Peter Zahan? I've never heard of the guy before. This is a He's an American geopolitical analyst and author. Poli sci. Focuses on topographical and geographical landmarks, river, oceans, mountains as distinct advantages to a nation's ability to dominate economically, industrially, and militarily. Um, I mean, I guess on a basic level, um, those sound like things that would work, but he actually goes a bit further, mapping collapse of globalization. Um, zero, oh, and then he starts talking about other stuff, collecting COVID data. So this is the big thing about like experts is that like you can have an expert and they can be a genius in one thing, and then because they're a genius, people are like, well, let me ask you about something else, and they're not necessarily a genius in that, and so then all of a sudden they can say kind of like odd things. So I mean, if he's an expert on like physical landmarks, like, if you say like, okay, well, the United States had really great agriculture in the plains, and that's going to allow them to become the breadbasket of the world for a long time, or like the South was really good for cotton growing, which allowed cotton production and slavery and America's economy to boom and become number one. Like, all these things are very logical to me, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or like Egypt has the Nile and therefore it becomes a super powerful area of versus Jordan, which has nothing. That all makes sense to me. But if he starts talking about other stuff, starts taking it too far, starts talking about like um, COVID and stuff like that's outside of his wheelhouse, I'm not sure. But other than that, I mean, I don't know anything about him. But do 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 do. Yeah, I wish the Qarthian were developed more in the World Book. They only give us a few details. I mean, in universe, there should be more info on them. It is really ridiculous that I almost feel like we hear more of Asshai than we do Qarth, even on the people in universe. Like, why wouldn't there be more Qarthian floating around? Why wouldn't there be more knowledge on their history and stuff like that, rather than it just being like this big. Like when Dany arrives there, it's almost like it's like this foreign land she's almost never heard of, and it's like, well, didn't she like? Wasn't she at like in Vastoth Rock for a while, and weren't there like Qarthian traders at the market and stuff like that? Like, wouldn't so? I don't know. Um, the I just imagined Asshai being dark and hellish. Yeah, I mean, I don't even understand why anyone would go to Asshai. I mean, unless there's like it's just a trading port like Singapore or something, like that beyond Asshai is some really great rich lands to trade with. But like there's no sun there, and like stuff is creepy, and there's no children, like all sorts of stuff where you're just like, why would anyone go there? It sounds horrible. Like, why would anyone, like, so there must be something really 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 important past it. I don't know why anyone would go there. What are you bringing back from Asshai that you're not getting in Qarth, like, or that you're not like this is the thing, is these are simpler times, like I'm trying to think like what products, is someone in Bravos sitting there going, what I need some Asshai hats, like there's nothing like what are they offering the world? I don't really get it, but um if you ever get a chance to meet Preston's kids, please teach them to ask when his book comes out. Give him full George R. Martin experience. It's coming. It's coming. The book is done. It's just I have to go through edits and then work on um like figuring out publishing and stuff like that. So uh, it's there, but it's happening. I mean, I just got back from vacation. I'm exhausted. That's the thing, is there's so much stuff at once that I want to do that it's really hard. Um, like to come back and be like, okay, like I really want to finish Arianne 3. I really want to like produce more videos. I really want to do podcasts with Carmine. There's so many things at once where you come back and you're like, oh gosh, like I'm at this point in my life where um I like I don't know about boredom, like, do you remember when you were young and you like wake up in the morning, you're like, what am I gonna do today? Like, I don't have those days. Like the only time, I mean, I do get bored, but it's more mainly like um you take your kid to the playground and he's playing and you're standing there and you're like, oh, okay, here I am. But it's not like standing at the playground I can get any work done. Like that's just not how it is. But um Al-Ardim point of view. I mean, if Al-Ardim would get a point of view, I think his only chance would be the Winds of Win or the A Dream of Spring prologue. I think I pretty much know, like, I think I know what I want to do for the epilogue, but that's years down for the Winds of Winter. But it would have to be like the prologue of A Dream of Spring or something, to which maybe Al-Ardim, but it's but I think Ghost is probably a pretty good epilogue for the Winds of Winter. Um, fuck yeah, Marash of Mir. What's weird is there's a city called Marash as well in Ice and Fire for no reason, and they're completely unrelated. He just like he went the George R. R. Martin monkey on his typewriter like hit the same things. Um, let's see, Preston, are you watching Last of Us? Do you tend on talking about it? Yes, Carmine and I plan on doing a podcast on The Last of Us. Um, Carmine played the game a bit. He knows it in and out. I don't really know it that well. So we're gonna have those two perspectives. It's really well done. It's really well done. Plus, like, who doesn't love Oberyn? Like Oberyn and Lyanna and Maeve's daughter all in one show. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, I would even say like watching that second, like, first of all, the first episode was that opening was really great, following Maeve's daughter around, and then but the second one with the Indonesians, like, man, like, all subtitled, but man, like, just the looks on all of their faces and the ability for all of them to act, like, those actors, those Indonesian actors, whoever they are, they're they are great. I want to look them up to see if they Indonesian Americans? Are they actually Indonesian? But man, they that was a really powerful uh, um, series, like, moment. Plus, it actually looked like Indonesia. That was like really fantastic. Huh. What are your thoughts on the three heads of the dragon being Wyvern, Worm, and Warg? Interesting. I mean, I'd never thought of it that way. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they all have the word W in them, but I don't know if Warg really fits with the other two. I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, okay, it takes like the genetic engineering of a worm and a wyvern to create a dragon, and then Warg to create the telepathy connection, and therefore, like, that's the whole product. Um, but I don't know. Certainly, in George R. R. Martin's mind, probably no, because he probably came up with the three heads of the dragon before he came up with the whole, like, wyvern worm, like, idea of it. Like, maybe he thought about, like, genetic engineering in a general sense, but did he think about that specifically being the process of producing a dragon, like crossbreeding wyverns and worms? Not when he came up with three heads of the dragon prophecy, which is from Clash, and he was probably, like, thinking about it. He'd probably, by the time Game of Thrones was published, he had probably come up with it. But in his first drafts and his early drafts of a Game of Thrones, like, he had not made Aegon polygamist. That was kind of a late addition. Because if you read Blood of the Dragon, the Daenerys story, Aegon Aegon is not married to both his sisters. He's only married to one. And so later the second sister is added around the same time as, like, probably he's thinking about the House of the Undying and the three heads of the dragon kind of prophecy kind of stuff that comes in. So he'd already come up with dragons and the telepathic connection to dragons before he came up with three heads. Now, could he, like, piece these things together and retcon? Sure. But I mean, besides the fact that I get it, I just I don't think it's what George was thinking. Have you heard of presentism as in how history is taught? It seems like a big deal in the US right now. Well, let's see about this. Presentism is the doctrine that only the present is real. A presentist thinks that everything is present more generally than necessarily that it's always true that everything is in the present. Present is a model doctrine of actualism. I think that present is attitude to see, I'm getting a lot of different definitions against this. In both disciplines and discussions of history, presentism is typically used as a term of abuse, a slur conventionally deployed to describe an interpretation of history that is biased towards and colored by present-day concerns, preoccupations, and values. Okay, now I'm understanding the question. So, for instance, in the United States today, we are very concerned with, more concerned with, say, like, working conditions than around, like, and workers' rights than, say, at the time of the Declaration of Independence. Back then, like, workers were treated shitty and that was just the way things were. No one ever thought about, like, work not being shitty. And so, like, if you're in a presentism stuff, you'd like pull out the Declaration of Independence and you'd start, like, reinterpreting it and stuff, like thinking about workers' rights and being like, oh, Thomas Jefferson was a piece of shit because he didn't think about workers' rights or something like this. I think more famously people are going to be doing this with like race, and thinking like, oh, maybe in the past people weren't so obsessed with race. I would say that, like, in the American context, like, race was always really fucking important. Slavery was always really fucking important from the beginning of United States, like, Western American history. Starting in, like, I'm talking like what the first blacks to come to that were brought to America was what, like 1619, like way back, like, and the first whites were 1607. So it's just like right from the beginning. You're talking that, like, slavery and race were always important. So I mean, I understand, like, the fear that one would be reinterpreting history for and shifting, like, the context of everything and the scope. Like, let's say we bring up, like, the Constitutional Congress, and we're like, well, there's no women there. What a bunch of sexists. Well, yeah, it's true. They were a bunch of sexists. And, is that relevant to talk about? Well, it depends. Like, it depends on, like, what you're interested in. We're interested in things in the present. So, like, reinterpreting history and making it history as a tool to tell us about today. So, like, it would seem logical to me. I mean, I admit that, like, it's a little odd to only think about history in terms of, like, present stuff when like how they perceive things and their scope is also probably relevant to think about. But I mean, I think this is a fairly complicated idea that you're not teaching kids like about like changing scope and shifting attitudes and what that means. I think in general, we the discussions with children up to age 18 don't get that deep. So I'm not sure if and also like when people talk about like how history is taught in America, I mean, Jesus, there's thousands of schools, and thousands of teachers. They're all not going to be on board. It's not like there's this you know, conspiracy of like high school principals who like all come together in this big like Harrenhal conclave and like decide what's going to be taught in America. Um, you know, Even like state curriculum, it's very general. Um, History teachers have a lot of freedom to do what they do, as long as they kind of like hit the very general ideas that are in a state curriculum, and then the curriculum is going to be on the state level. So I don't think that like there's going to be much in America that's going to be consistent all through 50 states and then down to the school level. This is why like all the talk about like CRT was really stupid. Like that's just there's not these like massive wave movements that are all happening at once. Like that's just not how anything works. Like I was very surprised that like when I went to college, one of my roommates, he was from Florida, and he's like, yeah, no, in school we were taught that he was from Tallahassee, like a rural area around Tallahassee, and he's like, no, we were taught in school that like the South was right and it was a war of northern aggression. Like we were taught that in school, and I was like, what? How is that? How is that possible? How was someone teaching you that? Like, and he's like, no, that's what they were like literally teaching us in school. And so for people to be like really like talk about an entire movement in the United States, like all these schools everywhere, like they're teaching different stuff. There's not much uniformity. Um, let's see. What's Edric Storm's role going forward? I don't really know. I mean, we've got to like. I mean, he's there. Maybe he's going to be picked up by someone like Daenerys or something later on or something. But he's or somehow bring him into the plot related to the Estermonts. But for those who don't know, like Edric Storm was really loved by Courtney Penrose, and so Stannis had a really tough time getting Storm's End because Courtney Penrose was fearful that Stannis was going to burn or do something bad to Edric Storm. Anyway, the Penrose gets thrown from a tower, and then Edric Storm gets brought back to Dragonstone, and Davos also becomes fearful that something bad's going to happen. So he gets a bunch of King's men, not Queen's men, to run off with him, and take him to Lyce. And the function of the escape was to sort of make us think about Dany's escape from when she was a baby, and to create a rift between Davos and Stannis and things like this. And then the characters went off and they're just kind of sitting there, literally nothing happened with them in A Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons. So one of the guys taking care of him is an Estermont, and one of the the Golden Company did take over Estermont, and there's Lomas Estermont who's going to appear in Arianne 3. Like he's at Storm's End. So there is like a loose connection that there's an Estermont taking care of Edric Storm, and we're running into some Estermont stuff. I mean, obviously like Spotted Silva was on Estermont. She's going to be, in the Golden Company's hands. So there's a way there's a way to pull him back. There is, but I don't know what use he'd have. I don't know why anyone would care about him at this point. Like, like the Golden Company is going to try to take down Tommen, and Tommen being a bastard or being proven to be a bastard because you've got an Edric Storm character that looks exactly like Robert seems rather irrelevant. Having him like be the real ruler of Storm's End also seems rather irrelevant to people. Like I don't know why anyone would be like, like especially when Stannis is alive. Like you've got to have like Stannis killed and then news of Stannis getting killed coming back down south. Like I don't know his like role. I mean, I feel like I'll need to pull him back in the fan fiction for some reason, but I don't know. I don't know why anyone would care about him. I mean, there was a fan theory that this was going to be John Conn's way of like taking Storm's End, was to like somehow show that he has Edric Storm and the people would surrender. But there's no mention of him coming, like, or them finding that group. Why would that group like all of a sudden join the Golden Company or be found by the Golden Company? It's that's keeping Edric Storm hidden. So, I mean, something's got to pull him back, but I don't see a reason. And I don't know if, like, does George come up with a reason or not, so. Let's see. I'm a new fan. As Preston talk about what his book's about. My book is about two travelers who are traveling from Morocco to Japan, who live in parallel universes, who dream each other's existence. And one of the characters lives in a world where a plague has killed all white people. That's essentially and American Indians have dominated the world. And so the two characters travel from west to east and dream each other's lives, and that's essentially the plot. Is it possible that Arianne's ravens aren't going to Doran, but rather to other sand snakes to give them anti-Aegon propaganda to spread around town? Huh. I never considered that. I mean, you're right that those ravens may not go to. We have no proof that those ravens go to Doran. It's true. But to other sand snakes, well, certainly not to Obara, because Obara's on the move. So the ravens going to her would be tough. I mean, unless Doran is sitting there, let's give them Hellholt, the Hellholt's ravens or something, and then all of a sudden this raven would show up at the Hellholt. And Tyene and Lady Nym are heading to King's Landing, and so that wouldn't happen because the ravens would end up in whatever the Tyrell Maester's hands. And at that point, unless Doran knows about Pycelle dying, he would think they would go to Pycelle. But then it leaves Sorella. Could they actually be heading to the Citadel? Sorella is pretty close to the to the Ravens. I mean, conceivably they could go to, but I mean, and then the children, but the young sand snakes, but I don't know. I mean, it just seems more useful to Doran, right? That the information would go to him. I don't know why he would necessarily want Sorella to have that information rather than himself. Doran seems like power hungry, or so. but we'll see. So I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's an interesting idea that the Ravens aren't going back, but I'm trying to think of like what would be the function to it, you know? Um, uh, it's funny to me that U.S. Americans always think about history of their own country and only 200 years. Yeah, that's true, but I'm not saying like Americans aren't um, very American centric. They are, but most countries are really focused on themselves. Europeans are probably the only ones that like think outside of their own country a bit. But when you go to any country, whether it be like Japan or China or Egypt or wherever, they really just care about their own politics. Like it's outrageous how. So it's not that Americans are like different from the rest of the world and that they're Americentric. Most places are very self-centered, like outrageously self-centered. Like I did a vacation to Trinidad, and like people are just talking about Trinidad. I'm just like, your island is nothing. And they're just like all concerned with like Trinidad politics. And you're like, oh God, like how can you be so like narrow minded? So it's only that Europe is a little different, is where they think about things outside of Europe. Um, that's about it. I mean, and most people like have a general idea of like what's going on in American politics too, but it's I'm being a little apologetic to Americans. Like Americans, look, Americans are pieces of shit, but we're not that much more different than the rest of the world. The rest of the world are pieces of shit too. Like we're all pieces of shit. It's just um, so um, are you a Locke believer or a Hobbes man? More Hobbes. I mean, I'm more of a I'm more of an existentialist. I'm more of a Sartre man myself, actually, but not not too much. The Yeah, I mean, I'm much more on like 20th century kind of ideas, not like these old um ideas about like, I don't know, empiricism and like the nature of rights and stuff like that. Uh, let's see. Anti-CRTers are mad that they can't brainwash their kids to their viewpoints. This is very true that a lot of people are really focused on brainwashing kids. And these people, the same people that are anti-CRT, um, which again, like critical race theory doesn't really even exist in American schools. It was a boogeyman. But these are the same people that create like youth groups for kids, right? And like, you know, try to get try to convince a bunch of like 13-year-olds to like hang out and think that, you know, they're going to lose all their friends unless they accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Like all of that stuff is going on with these same people. These same people are brainwashing like children. So like, this they're all quite hypocrites. I mean, because everybody knows you get to the kids early, like you're gonna have them you're gonna warp their minds for the rest of their lives. So, um, does Aegon's prophecy being confirmed as canon in House of the Dragon affect how we should interpret Bloodraven's actions in manipulating the Targaryen bloodline's succession? Oh, it's yes. I mean, we're making a lot of jumps here. Like we don't really like um is it Bloodraven? Like I understand that like Bloodraven definitely seems like he's like, I don't know. Now I'm stumbling here. I fundamentally kind of believe that like, yes, like Bloodraven was manipulating the bloodlines in order to put like Egg on the throne, and doing things like after that to try to maybe bring Bran about. Like that's my belief. Um, does Aegon's prophecy change things? I don't know. I mean, I think Bloodraven's actions work well enough without prophecy. You know, that all the prophecies were coming from Bloodraven or the Children of the Forest or something like that. And then later we can say like maybe time traveling Bran was doing stuff, um, but then it's like who at the time of House of the Dragon and say Aegon, and say Daenerys the Dreamer and people like that, who's the one sending the dreams? Um, because Bloodraven isn't born yet, and time traveling Bran, like he can't interfere with stuff that's going to prevent his own birth. You know, he can't. Like a lot of people say, like come up with the idea of like, no, maybe, you know, Bran Stark was Brandon the Builder, and he was like doing stuff thousands of years ago. And you're like, right, but he's like screwing up his own birth, unless you believe in like the paradox of predestination and that it's just an all time loop, which doesn't really seem like George's style to do time loops. Because like, what's the point? I mean, why? If everything's in a loop, like, why are we trying to change time? So the only thing I could say is that like the children are the only ones left who could send a prophecy. So maybe the children of the forest themselves are trying to do something. Um, you know, and then, you know, maybe based on like Game of Thrones, like the children of the forest seemed really sad. They're like, oh man, we tried this revenge stuff. We're all gonna die. Maybe humanity can like can inherit the earth from us. Like, you know, that seemed to be like their position. So maybe they're kind of in the same situation. They're like, okay, we need to like manipulate the humans in order to try to bring dragons back to like fight the others. Um, why why they would do it in the way they did it, I don't know. Like, why would you destroy Valyria and all of the dragons in order to bring dragons to Westeros? Like, why wouldn't you just bring the dragons over in the first place? Um, so, I mean, I think Bloodraven is manipulating the Targaryen bloodlines, absolutely. I but I don't know how it relates to the prophecy. Like, I don't know why the prophecy exists. Like, why at Aegon's, like, why would Daenerys the Dreamer and Aegon and everything like be trying to bring dragons at this point? Like, who's doing it? Because Bloodraven's not alive. Time traveling Bran, you know, is must be the children. I'm guessing it's the children, but um let's see here. The Heart of Winter. Um, so the Heart of Winter is when Bran is having his first like dream with the three-eyed crow in Bran 3 of Game of Thrones. He flies with the three-eyed crow, and they go past the wall, and they go past like Jon, and he sees, you know, 1,000 dreamers on spires, and then he comes to a curtain of light at the edge of the world, and he goes beyond. He calls this like the Heart of Winter, and he goes beyond this curtain, and all of a sudden the three-eyed crow says, now you know why you must live. And Bran starts crying, and then, you know, the dream essentially ends. um um so like the curtain of light at the edge of the world thing, like I don't know if it makes too much sense. I'm actually, when did the, let me bring up the actual thing, because the order of stuff is kind of important. Um because if he sees the spires after, Bran looked at the crow on his shoulder, and the crow looked bad. He had three eyes, terrible knowledge. Bran looked down, saw nothing below him now but snow and cold and death, a frozen wasteland where jagged blue white spires of ice awaited to embrace him. So he actually sees the spires after he comes to the heart of winter and the curtain. Okay, what I think it is, I think the heart of winter is time. I think now, I know this sounds like bullshit that I'm coming up with, but like no, I like now that I'm thinking about it because of the order of stuff. He's flying past the wall, and then he flies through this like mysterious like white curtain and goes beyond it. Um, and and he starts crying and says, now you must know why you must live." And then he sees the thousand dreamers dead on spires. Like the thousand dreamers dead on spires. I'm pretty convinced that the thousand dreamers are a thousand versions of Bran, um, dead on spires. Like I think that based on like the Hold the Door episode in Game of Thrones, there's going to be an escape from the Cave of the Three-Eyed Crow, and the escape is going to need time travel. And so we kind of in the story we know that there's a door there's a back door to the cave, and it's at the bottom of a sinkhole. And so if the Hold the Door moment is happening at the bottom of a sinkhole, everything kind of makes sense. Like Bran is trying to climb out of that sinkhole, and he falls, and in that moment of falling, he time travels. Probably because he becomes weightless and all of this kind of shit. And it makes sense that there's like spires at the bottom of this hole that he's going to impale himself on, right? Because if so, I think it just fits that the dreamers are him, and because who else are the dreamers? Like, why would all the other dreamers be on spires? Like, who are these thousand dreamers? Like, it just makes sense that it's Bran. And if they're impaled on spires, it means they fell. And we know that the time travel happens at the Hold the Door moment, and the Hold the Door moment is at the bottom of this pit. So I think that the Three-Eyed Crow taking him beyond the world is taking him like beyond that barrier. He's taking him like beyond time. That's my guess. And I think the heart of winter is time. Like why they call it heart of winter, or or you could say it another way, that that pit is the heart of winter. Like that pit where Bran goes into his time loop 1,000 times and repeats this thing 1,000 times is the heart of winter. I mean, you can interpret it a lot of ways, but I think that moment in time, the Hold the Door episode, the Hold the Door moment, is kind of the heart of winter. I think that makes sense. Best A Song of Ice and Fire movie subject, like a single movie that we could do, like like how we had Breaking Bad, and there's there's Breaking Bad, and then we have like the Jesse movie afterwards. What you could do with A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, I think you could probably do a pretty cool movie about like how Dario's doing, like ruling Marine. I think that would be an interesting one, like by itself. Um, these lost plots that we never get to find out. What happens. Trying to think any others where it's just like one singular story that it could just be like a good 2-hour movie. Um, uh, you know. You could probably do the voyages or Numeria's 10,000 ships with that kind of stuff. Also, the Dunk and Egg. If you were not going to make them into a series, like each of those would be really good movies by themselves because they are kind of short. But yeah, that's what I would do. Welcome back. Thanks for your recommendation on She-Hulk. You and your wife might like Orphan Black. Definitely campy. Lots of Tatiana Maslany, and even has Nacho from Better Call Saul. Interesting. Orphan Black. The this is the thing people are really surprised that I liked She-Hulk, and everyone's like, but there were so many videos about how She-Hulk was horrible, and it's like, well, um, it was wow. Orphan Black was 5 seasons. I've never heard of this show. Canadian science fiction thriller starring Tatiana Maslany, the woman from She-Hulk, um, dealing with like human cloning and identity. Oh man, what on earth? How do these things? How do these things? I've never heard of this show, and it's gone five, and it went 5 seasons. That's pretty funny. Oh, and there's like a bunch of clones. Okay, interesting. It stars like 5 clones of Tatiana Maslany like in the show. Well, she's definitely versatile enough to play it. Interesting, interesting. Orphan Black. Okay, all right, all right. Interesting. um, Jeez, rude to Trinidad. That picking could have picked any country. Could have been picked any country. um, Thoughts on Chat GPT? Everybody's been talking about these like AI stuff. I'll tell you. I tested out a lot of these AI stuff, um, and they are dreadful right now. They are dreadful. All the AI art that you can get, like, yeah, there's like somebody will pull up like a really incredible picture at some point there, and be like, this was created by AI. And well, at the same time, it was created by you finding the perfect like sentence after like hours and hours of trial and error and so it gets to the point where it's not an AI anymore. It's a human being selecting out the good stuff from like all of this noise. And so right now, like the hype on Chat GPT is just like insane. It's a few years ago everything was about like machine learning. Like machine learning is going to take over. Machine learn, and it's like here, but come on, you know. um, let's see. Canadians are pretty obsessed with outside politics. Yeah, there's going to be a few countries like that, but sometimes I'm pretty surprised how like focused on Canada Canadians can be. But Canada's an interesting country in that like the cities are so far apart, with not much in between, where you've got and yet a still kind of a cohesive culture. It's it's a funny funny place, but Canada's also kind of inescapable from America, and everything they do. Um, Americans are also very critical of America themselves, both left and right. I guess that's true everywhere, but to the extent that Americans love bashing America, it's true. Um, it's there's a lot of things that like Americans, or at least a certain segment of Americans, can't get away with. Like take Canada. There's so many Canadians that I know that like have Canadian maple leaf like tattoos, or like put the Canadian maple leaf on their backpack when they go traveling. An American, generally speaking, the types of Americans that leave America or travel don't do that kind of stuff. Maybe some like redneck, um, that doesn't leave Arkansas is going to have an American flag tattoo on his body, and wave American flags, but it tends not to be the guy who's like you know trying to go to a hostel in Amsterdam and chill out, and that's just it's just not the American thing to do. I've told this to Canadians. I'm like, man, you guys in so many ways are like ultra Americans. Like you're so nationalistic for no reason. Like Americans are really nationalistic, or can be, but not the ones that leave. Like, but yeah, Americans are very critical of themselves. Um, uh, we love bashing ourselves and questioning ourselves, but it's yeah, thank goodness. Though I know a lot of places where people are really down on their own country, even when their country is pretty great. Um, but but yeah, Americans, I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with you have to be self-loathing as well. You can't be like, if you are, because America is the biggest country, and like most powerful country, you can't be like, oh, I'm the best, because then it just seems like you're you're being a sore winner or something. Um, someone brainwashes is another's education. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Though, there are things that are objectively true, and then there are things that are subjectively believed. And so, at least with like, you can say that like an education um, produces like, you know, um, an education of objective facts is better than an education of subjective opinions. Um, the other thing is that there are there are belief structures and ideas that are superior to others, that are because there are ones that are internally consistent, and there are things that are not internally consistent. So like, I'm not a complete like relativist where it's like everyone's belief is equally good. Well, no, that's just not true. Like, some people have internally consistent belief structures and some people don't. Their belief structures are completely contradictory. And then some people believe things that are empirically true in the world. And then there are people that like believe things that are just not empirically true. So in that sense, like, I do think that there is a difference between education and brainwashing. But I take the point that like, yes, like somebody's brainwash is somebody else's education. It's true that the like certain things are going to be opinion. But um from Florida, went to school, field to a colonial reenactment. No mention of slavery or the horrid treatment of natives. They whitewashed the colonists. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm trying to think like, so my education, first 12 years of my life, I lived in Wisconsin, and then I moved to Maryland, and it was it, it's interesting because when I lived in Wisconsin, it was definitely a the Union was right. They were the good guys. The South was wrong. And that was just history. In the same way that, like, during the American Revolution, the Americans are the good guys, the British are the bad guys. Granted, I'm younger, and so you don't get any like nuance to it. But it was very clear, like, the Union were the good guys. When I moved to Maryland, the Union is still good guys, but there was more of, well, maybe the South had a point, you know? And granted, you're older too, so like they're introducing those ideas, but uh, and then as I got older, and you kind of go through stuff, and you go, no, actually, the South had no point. They were completely wrong. Like, the South was completely utterly wrong. This whole like, so it's one of these things where it's like, as you get older, you get more nuance to the political situation, and then you get a little older, and you're like, no, they were just bringing that up for no reason. But um why do I say that Jaehaerys was bad? I say Jaehaerys was bad because, well, one, his treatment of his daughter Sarah is horrific. Okay, that guy is a fucking dick. Okay, absolute dick. Also, like, his treatment of of Alysanne and early on is pretty horrific. Like, he just grabs this woman and like, grabs this little girl and forces her to marry him, and things like this. But also, like, he didn't have any um like good plan on what he was doing going forward with his heirs. He is the one that passes over Rhaenys, the queen who never was, for really a horrible reason. Like, why was he passing? Because, I mean, I'm guessing because Septon Barth told him to, like, but like, why make Balon the heir? Why? Like you're like why, like Balon didn't do anything. There was nothing incredible about Balon. Like we're presented with no like incredible reason that Balon should be the heir when Rhaenys was perfectly capable. And you know, keep your Velaryon alliance together. So it's like the whole Dance of the Dragons is Jaehaerys' fault. So I don't think Jaehaerys was a good person on a fundamental level. I think he was a dick, and I think that he made a huge mistake passing over Rhaenys to make Balon the heir and causing the Dance of the Dragons. Like it's just, um, I think reverse. Like why is Jaehaerys good? Like he built the King's Road, you know, like I mean, come up and give me some reasons on why it's good. I don't know. Like you know, he did what it took to be powerful and consolidate power from like fend off Rogar Baratheon's like encroachment. Like I don't know. There's nothing like no one's presented me anything where I'm just like, oh, what a great guy that Jaehaerys was. Like he's a horrible human being to his daughters, and he was not great to his wife, and he caused the Dance of the Dragons. So like I mean, the failures of Viserys are the failures of Jaehaerys. Like he's just maybe the Heart of Winter are the friends that we made along the way. The friends that we get chopped up and put into Jojen paste. The friends that we made along the way. Maybe the Heart of Winter is the door or the portal. Yeah, it could be something like that, you know. Um, uh, let's see here. Press another vote for Orphan Black as a who, in your opinion, is the best Targaryen king? Also, if Doran is feudal, why is Dornish law good? I mean, I think on the latter question, I think Dornish law is just a step in the right direction, right? You're talking about more respect, like more ideas on like we're not fully aware of like the full scale of Dornish law, but we're fairly sure that it involves um like human right treat like there's some ideas about human rights and like what is too cruel to put on another human being, whether it be a wife or a worker. We know that's part of it, and we know that you know, women inherit with the same rights as men, which is a step in the right direction. Like obviously, like primogenitor ideas of inheritance are going to cause problems no matter what. But like you're like, which is better, like sexist primogenitor situations or just like or not sexist primogenitor situations? All things being equal, I guess not sexist primogenitor situations. Like, so yeah, no, feudalism, not great. But Dornish law has more focus on human rights and justice and equality. It's just a step in the right direction. Now, obviously, you got to get rid of feudalism, but who in your opinion was the best Targaryen king? Let me go through my list. Gosh, it's like picking like who's the best dictator. Like, oh Jesus, like, you know, like these are brutal people that have power based on divine right, who all like kill indiscriminately to support their like oppressive system. So it's like, who's the best of them? Um, I mean, from what I've heard, Egg isn't bad until Summerhall. I'm trying to think of anybody else like where you've got like a wise like king that um trying to think. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily anything too bad about some of the um I think egg, all the evil stuff that like happened, like wasn't really Egg's fault, with Bloodraven like kinslaying and the killing and manipulation of people in order to put him on the throne. It wasn't really Egg's fault. Though I mean, Summerhall, if we find more about it, it might be that Summerhall was horrible and he was delusional. Um, I guess we don't really hear anything bad about what Jaehaerys the Second. These like little things. How was Makar? Was Makar okay? He was just a commander. I'm trying to. They say he was a harsh man. I don't know. Um, it's like who's the least bad dictator, you know. But I'm not gonna like put any of these guys on pedestals. Like they they this idea of like what makes a really great powerful leader. How do we who killed people at the right time? Who put their morality aside to do the right thing to kill people at the right time? It's like I don't know. Let's see here. You sound like in the old videos today, nostalgic. Oh, something with my voice or something today. Um, I love myself and constantly criticize myself and do the same for the USA. Yeah, I mean it's this say it's like the Theon mentality, right? And why like Theon is such a relatable character is that he's so arrogant and insecure at the same time. And aren't we all? Like aren't we all kind of arrogant and insecure at the same time? We all like love each other and hate ourselves at the same time. Um the what I wouldn't be part of a club that would have me as a member. Like contradiction. Thoughts on the Monroe policy and its modern form, the Monroe Doctrine. Um, the Monroe Doctrine, for those that aren't American, is this idea that the Pan American continent is the political sphere of the United States, and that um, although nothing is really like explicit, it's this idea that don't mess with Latin America, um, because that's going to lead to war with us, with the United States, because like really like they're not us, but we claim them anyway. It's like our political sphere. America can interfere with other stuff, but like but don't mess with Latin America. Um, and obviously completely hypocritical and ridiculous. Also, something that was never really followed. The Soviet Union interfered in Latin America constantly, and I think China is beginning to make headways in Latin America. So it's not something that like can really be there's nothing that like really there's nothing concrete that America can look to be like don't mess with Argentina, don't mess with Nicaragua. Like we we just it was just kind of this like general feeling that America has, that we have more of a right to interfere in Latin American affairs, and that the rest of the world does not have a reason to interfere in Latin American affairs. But America violates this stuff all the time, and the rest of the world violates this stuff all the time. So I don't think the Monroe Doctrine like really has much lasting um, power anymore. I don't know. I'm a radical San Marino nationalist. Let me grab my San Marino. Um, Hold on a second. Oh, I got this little thing in San Marino. It was you know, cute little thing, little stone castle stuff. San Marino is it's it's bare it, it's cute little place, but I don't know if it's worth going to. I just did it to like to country count. And it was very beautiful like when I went because it was super foggy and stuff. We were walking up, but it's there's nothing super special about it. There's no like San Marino special San Marino food or anything like that you and it's kind of annoying to get to by train and everything, but it's fine. It was beautiful. It was good. But yeah, the joke being like, who cares about San Marino nationalism? Um, I preferred schools in Ireland to the USA. I don't know if it was better, but definitely more enjoyable. Um, so one thing about American schools, and I don't know if like people, I've talked to other people in different countries about like the absolute horror that 12-year-olds to 14-year-olds experience in American school system. And granted, it's not everybody, but when I talk to most people, when they talk about like what's the worst time of your life where you were like the most unhappy, where people were just brutal to you, where there was the most bullying, where you were a bully and you feel guilty about it. Um, like most people, most Americans look back to age 12 to 14 and kind of say, well, that was really the worst. Like that was just like everyone else was horrible. I was horrible. I'd prefer not to think about age 12 to 14. But when I talk to people in other countries, I don't necessarily get that notion. They're like, no, I just, hung out with my friends. It was fine. Um, and so American movies try to portray it as high school, but it's not really high school. It's like the middle school, freshman year of high school, kind of era. Um, so I don't know. Maybe it's everywhere. I don't know if like I don't know. People can post like my middle school experience was great, but I think a lot of people in America, for some like specifically America, have this really horrible, brutal um, middle school experience. And I'm trying to think why, and I think it might have something to do with we watch American entertainment and we have this expectation of what high school is like, and you always look up to the next age group. You never look at your own age group. And so a middle schooler is looking at the American entertainment and saying like, "Oh, I want to be the cheerleader. I want to be the cool kid. Those are the nerds. I don't want to be in that group." And they start thinking about their status and their rank, and that becomes like an obsessive part of an American 12 to 14-year-old. And then by the time they're like 15, 16 in America, people get over it. And then the rest of the world is not necessarily obsessed with that. I don't know what it is, but I think American schools are brutal. Like, at least the American experience that I had was brutal. So I don't know if everybody else had something similar. Rogar Baratheon is overhated and underrated. I probably see that. Probably see that. Um, you know, it's hard to figure out what he was trying to do. He's rather chaotic. On like, I'm going to support this person, and now I'm sick of this person, and now I want to be in power, and I'm going to marry this person. It's tough. Um, let's see. I'd say that Daeron the Good was okay. Viserys the Second and Aegon the Third. There's a lot of dictators bound by pharaoh lords. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of like anything super bad that they did. I think was it the. I think there might be some stuff on like what Viserys the Second, like he was hand for a long time, and so he had a lot of actions as hand, but he didn't really have that many actions as like king himself and stuff like that. Um, but it's it's what makes a good leader. What makes like what and what's the big goal here? Like is the goal like uniting the world so that there's dragons so that we can fight the others? If that's like the legitimate like goal, um, who's a good leader versus like who makes people's lives better, who decreases human suffering, and if ever but if you did nothing for stopping the others, like who cares about decreasing human suffering? Have you ever read any Cormac McCarthy? As a father, The Road is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. But your favorite language, also, what's your favorite language to listen to? I don't think I've read. Um, let's see here. Cormac McCarthy wrote The Orchard Keeper, The Road. I have not read anything by him, but it's interesting to hear about. Now, the road is this the one that was made into the movie? Yeah. Um, yeah, and then he's fairly recent. I mean, his actually, I guess he's been writing for a long time, but like his success. Okay, so he wrote No Country for Old Men, The Road. Um, oh, he spends a long time on each book, so it's like okay. I see. I have not, but it's a good recommendation. Um, let's see. Favorite language to listen to? Hmm. I mean, what language is not very harsh on the ears? The trying to think like I've never been too much of someone that's been like that's a beautiful language or that just sounds beautiful. But I do think that Arabic can sound quite beautiful to listen to, and I do think that like French and Italian and Spanish. I think Castilian Spanish is quite beautiful, um, but the it's all like who's speaking it and stuff like that, and how they're speaking it. Um, I it's funny because it's like I studied Spanish for many years, and I studied Chinese for many years, and like certain it can be once you start understanding stuff, the language all of a sudden can be harsh because you're actually taking in the words. But when you don't know the language, like you can just listen to the flow. There are these jokes that like why do words like lesion, like why is lesion such a beautiful word, but the actual like concept of a lesion is disgusting, but the word lesion is like rolls off the tongue. Lesion. So that might be part of it. I mean, I know some people that think like Chinese is quite beautiful, or like Chinese characters are quite beautiful, but once you start like learning what they mean, the exoticism goes away and the magic kind of goes away. So um one of the stupidest things George R. Martin has ever written was a 8,000 year dynasty. There's never been anything like that. It makes absolutely no sense. Um, 2 to the power of 8,000 average age of parenthood is incredibly high. That's true. That's true. Um, it's ridiculous, especially when they start talking about like there's never been a female ruler in in Stark history, and after all of these years, like there's only a handful of Starks left, and that somehow like the same genetic material would go down, and somehow like these people would look the same after all of these generations. That like Ned Stark can pull out a book and be like, I've done this history of every time a Baratheon and a Lannister like had a child, and every time like the Baratheon Black like won out over the Lannister Gold. Like, oh my god, that's so dumb. Like, it's so dumb. I mean, it's interesting, but um, I've had no guests today. No one's wanted to call me. Carmine, Glitus. I see you all lurking. No one's wanted to call me. No. Who's your favorite philosopher? Mine is Adam Smith. Adam Smith is has been slandered so much. He is Adam Smith is a great thinker, and he has a lot of great ideas. And unfortunately, his name is now associated with unbridled free market, which is something he was never ever for. He's Adam Smith said frequently the market leads to the most efficient outcome. He didn't even say most of the time. He said frequently. And he wrote all sorts of other books besides Wealth of Nations about like the function of government and how important government was and how important government oversight was to like push society forward. And he wrote so much about caring about like the average worker and what the average worker needed and things like that. Stuff that people just didn't even think about at the time. And I almost feel sad that his name is associated with cruelty when he was not that guy. It's really it's quite sad. Smith is underrated quite a bit. I don't think I've ever really dreamed in another language. Maybe some, every once in a while some Spanish or Chinese or something. But German can be surprisingly beautiful. The stereotype of the nine, it's just not. I mean, Germans, when they talk to each other like day to day, they're remarkably cutesy to each other when they talk. Everything's like do 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 no 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 oh no juice. Like it's kind of really funny. German culture, because we have this big Nazi sore in the middle of like German history and German culture. Like it's really hard to like think about it, but like prior to Hitler, the Germans were known as like the romantic philosopher people of Europe. You had all of these German philosophers and thinkers and artists and composers and they were the softies, things that we associate now with France. Like people are like, oh, the great cooks and the great philosophers and the great thinkers and the great poets and the great musicians. Like you think about these romantic Italians or these romantic French. People thought of the Germans that way, that they were these softies, that were into romance and that was like the stereotype in 19th century German, like early 20th century. And then Hitler and then we got post, right? And and now the stereotype of Germans is like, oh, these very like logical people that which is, maybe you could say that about like North Germans, but But it's funny that was the stereotype. They were the romantic ones, you know. And so, you know, Germans, they really love parks and walking and going for walks and, um, you know, believing in like self-reliance and letting children be children and not, you know, all these like really weird things that you don't think about, in America. Like, what is Germany? Oh, Germany is a land where like people really believe that kids should be kids and that you shouldn't pressure kids too much because like that's going to be bad for them, and that you need to let kids play. Like that's a very strong German belief, and it doesn't fit with the whole like rigorous like I am German, you know, like stereotype that we have. Like, you know, like no, you need to let kids play in the park. They shouldn't be studying on a Saturday or a Sunday. They should be running and playing. You know, like it's like very very strong German belief, and yet like, you know, you wouldn't think of that. Um, I just moved and haven't set up my mic yet. Sue me. Oh, congrats on the new place then. Um, I just like hearing Preston destroy my favorite Game of Thrones moments. Yeah, I did a lot of destroying of like Janice Slint recently, and the Janice Slint um, storyline. Somebody pointed out. Somebody mentioned in one of the comments that that George stole the John beheading Slint line from a fan recommending it at a con. I would love to find out what interview that was. But essentially, it boils down to, and it actually like once somebody pointed it out to me, I was like, oh, this makes Janice Slint even worse, even worse. There's apparently where the later line is more famous, but in a Game of Thrones in the Sansa chapter, um, Sansa looks on Janice Slint's face, and she thinks, "Man, if only some hero would would." She says, wishing she could hurt him, wishing she could throw him down and cut off his head. But a voice inside of her whispered, "There are no heroes. Um, life is not a song, sweetling. You may learn that one day to your sorrow." So it makes me even hate, like, it makes me hate the Janice Slint storyline more because clearly, like, George decided, or this fan that recommended to him, if that story is correct, that because Sansa thinks she wants some hero to throw him down and cut off his head, and John throws him down and cuts off his head, you know, that this is somehow fitting that John's the hero. But the next line of Peter saying, like, life is not a song, like life is not a song, sweetling, is so much more powerful and thematically represents Ice and Fire more. Like, am I supposed to read this and be like, well, John is the hero, he threw down Janice Slint and cut off his head, hooray? Like, is Ice and Fire suddenly like a happy story with John? Is life a song? Like, is life, I mean, yeah, it's the song of Ice and Fire, but are we supposed to like come out of this thinking Santa Claus is real after all? Like, this whole story, like, isn't Ice and Fire about like saying like, no, like fantasy stories are dumb, like the whole hero saves the day thing is stupid. You're not going to be saved. The world is about like personal responsibility and taking responsibility for your actions and human choices. Like, if that's the message, like, what are we supposed to take from it? That John is the hero after all, and that the world, life is a song, and that Littlefinger's advice, like powerful advice, is like irrelevant, and that we just need John to save the world. It's like, hooray, Santa Claus. Like, it makes me hate the fact, like, somebody pointing out to me the Sansa thing makes me hate the John killing Janice Slint thing even more. Like, life is a song. Littlefinger was wrong. We just need to believe. We just need to believe um, um, in things. Adam Smith equals Ayn Rand. In the conservative mind. yeah, in the conservative mind, they believe that. But Adam Smith is nothing like Ayn Rand, man. Adam Smith believed in a hello.
What's going on?
Yeah, Adam Smith believed in a very important role of government in oversight of humanity and the market. How's it going?
I was watching The Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Deviation from the source material done
Hmm.
very well. I think you're gonna like episode 3 more than you liked episode 1 and 2.
I mean,
I know your
I
tastes.
really, watching the inside the episodes and how when they diverted from the source material and they like explained everything, and you're like, okay, as long as you're thinking about it really well, I think I think that's great. I just love how much like thought the inside the episodes really I liked it. I need to sit down and watch the uh, I need to I need to watch the podcasts. I want to know about like what's going on there. But how are you liking it?
It's very good. It's very good. I think this is gonna break the video game curse. Though they said they wanted to do Last of Us Part 2 for season 2, and I don't see how they, because in the first game Ellie is a young girl, and then in part 2 she's much older, taller, and
You
she
mean
looks like a
Liana?
woman. No, I mean Ellie in the original game.
Oh,
But how the
right.
fuck is the Liana actress? Bella Ramsey. How the fuck Bella Ramsey is not growing anymore? I don't think she can mature. She's 18 when she did this, so I don't see how she
Yeah,
can
yeah. I
like
mean,
get
she's 20 now,
taller,
right?
something
Um,
like that. Yeah. So I don't see how she could get taller because she looks like a young girl. Unfortunately for her,
yeah.
her and Tom Holland. Tom Holland has the same thing. He's in his 20s, but my man here looks like he's going to be 17 forever.
Right. They're all like Gary Coleman kind of
Yeah.
situations, right? Yeah. Uh,
So
uh.
you like my Tucker Carlson picture?
Yes, of course.
I
Of
don't know how to
course.
say what's going on in Russian, but you get the idea.
What's happening? Oh, yeah. Um, I feel like the Japanese are seen more positively than the Germans. Yeah, it's weird, but it all has to do with like pop culture, right? Like the pop culture influence that somehow we think like Japan is the anime that we watch, and Japan is nothing like the anime that we watch. Like you
No,
go
it
to
is not.
Japan, and they're first of all the Japanese think that aren't that into manga and anime. Okay, that's dork culture over there. It's dork culture here. It's dork culture over there. Um, do you remember? Did you ever watch Revenge of the Nerds, Carmine?
I have seen bits and pieces of it.
It's a movie that it's very problematic. Okay, today, very problematic. However, there are a lot of really incredible little scenes. It was a very creative movie, and there's a lot of jokes in it that I think are very funny. And so at one point, so the nerds are essentially this group of outcasts, and they're all outcasts in different ways. One character's gay, one character's like too young, like graduated high school at 12 and is in college as a 12-year-old. One guy's a slob, one guy's a Poindexter. His name is actually Poindexter. Like he's just super awkward,
Hmm.
um and so each of them is an outcast in different ways. And one of them is this really nerdy Japanese character who doesn't know how to interact with anybody. And they go around trying to get like donations for their frat. And so they're going door to door asking for donations. And the Japanese guy rings on this rings the doorbell, and the guy who answers is also Japanese. And so for a moment, because they've been really unsuccessful in getting any support, and for a moment you're like, oh gosh, it's another Japanese character. Maybe this Japanese guy is going to like support their frat. And they talk for a while in Japanese, and then finally the Japanese guy is just like, no, nerd, and then slams the door. it's it's one of those, you realize that like this poor Japanese character, it's not that he doesn't fit in because he's Japanese. He's actually a nerd in Japan too. Like it's it's one of the funny moments of the movie, but it's a really it's yeah, it's
I agree with you. If Germany had anime, we'd probably let a lot of the Adolf thing slide. I agree with you.
yeah, and it's not that Germany doesn't produce some good movies, but it's they're different. They're not it's not and I think even though the Germans are very cutesy culture, they don't like just bathe in cutesiness like the Japanese do, you know. I mean, no one, when you say like, oh, I really love, if a person were to say like, oh, I really love like, Japanese stuff, you immediately think, oh, he likes schoolgirls and robots and robotic schoolgirls and Hello Kitty and you're not thinking about like the Japanese prison camps where like human beings were forced to do labor and not fed and then died of starvation in situations that were as bad as Nazi concentration camps. Like you don't that's not the first thing your mind goes to. While when you say like, oh, he really loves German culture, the first thing you think of is, oh, you like Hitler. Like it's just not fair, right? It's just not fair.
Germany came out with Pokemon before Japan did. It'd be a different conversation right now.
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny as well, though, is if you talk to the average Japanese person versus the average German person, the average German person is much less racist. It's much less racist than the average Japanese person. Right wing ideals. If you talk to a Japanese person, much more common than like right wing ideals in Germany. So it's like in order to get the real right wing ideals in Germany, you really have to go to like East Germany. That's like really the only place where the right wing party has much support. I mean, a little bit in Munich, but like among like some wealthy Munich people. But for the most part, it's like East Germany is where all the right wing support is. But yeah, uh, uh, when has Inside the Episodes ever gone wrong? It's so funny how like, I mean, I'll grant even with Westworld, like I'd finish an episode and be like, oh, that Westworld episode was like not great, and then I watch the Inside the Episode and be like, well, they put a lot of thought into stuff. That's pretty cool. Well, meanwhile, like the Game of Thrones Inside the Episodes, you like watch the episode and you're like, gosh, what were they thinking? And then you watch the inside, you watch the episode and you're like, what were they thinking? And you watch the Inside the Episode and it's like, oh my God, even worse. Like, what were they doing? That's just, oh no. Uh, um, a song isn't always pretty or perfect, and just because John kills Slint, it doesn't make him Santa. An individual perspective changes who or what is a hero. But I don't understand. Like, what about John? Like John killing Slint. Like, he didn't really. It was pretty brash decision. It was John being brash. So like he's not even being the hero in that situation. Like him killing Slint was I mean, other people act all sorts of bad and stuff and he himself, John himself, at this point in the story had done stuff that was as bad as Slint, and he wasn't executed. Like John killed Slint because he had like it was a capricious decision, at like that just kind of took him at once. Like I think the idea is that the rage of the direwolf caused him to do it. So he's not even being the hero. So I don't even understand the paralleling back to like the Sansa thing. I mean, you get into this thing that like Sansa is actually being angry because it's like an ugly moment of Sansa. Sansa has a lot of ugly thoughts, understandable ugly thoughts, but Sansa has a lot of ugly thoughts, cruel thoughts that other characters don't have. Like no other character takes joy in other people's death. even Arya doesn't take joy in other people's death, but Sansa takes joy in other people's deaths. So Sansa's got some unusual things. So her frog-faced Slint sat at the council table wearing a black velvet doublet, shiny cloth of gold cape, nodding with approval every time the king pronounced a sentence. Sansa stared at his ugly face, remembering how he had thrown down her father for Sir Ilyn to behead, wishing she could hurt him, wishing that some hero would throw him down and cut off his head. But a voice whispered inside her, "There are no heroes," and she remembered what Lord Peter had said to her here in this very hall. "Life is not a song, sweetling," he told her. "You may learn that one day to your sorrow." In life, the monsters win, she told herself, and how it was the hound's voice she heard, a cold rasp, metal on stone. Save yourself from some pain, girl, and give him what he wants. Like at this point, it's just like I don't understand the parallel. Like what's going? Like what is even going on? Is Jon? Are they trying to say that Jon is a hero? Are they trying to say that Jon is a monster? Because he's neither one of those things. He all he did was like throw down Slint and cut off his head over something over some mild insubordination, maybe a little more than mild, and not even knowing what Slint did. I don't know. It's just I don't feel good about it. I don't know. I don't know. I feel about Ellie Actor, but the show's awesome. Preston, have you ever considered working on Northern fan fiction chapters? At this rate, you'll be done with the book before George R. R. Martin. We're gonna get to the North. But it was the timeline wise. I wanted to get into chapters that happened before winter, before the epilogue, and then we can move on to other stuff, and certain things relate to each other more. Like I say, I wanted to get the White Raven stuff out of the way, and so the North stuff, yes, want to get to that, we will, but I don't know which one, where we're going to go after we get John Con 2 done, but we'll see how it goes. I know people are like wanting to get to like Melisandre and Davos and Theon and Asha. I get it. That's everybody's favorite theater. But at this rate, we'll be done before George R. R. Martin. It's a slow rate. Like I think about it, and I'm just like, oh gosh, like maybe we can get being ambitious. Maybe we can get like 10 chapters done a year. More like 8 or 9, and we've got to essentially get to 60, about. So we're talking like a good 6 years to get it done, or 5 more.
6 years, God damn, 6 years.
I mean, it's just the time. Like the more I do these chapters, and the more like you get into them and you're like, oh, we want this chapter to be good. We want this chapter. Like, I really thought that even when I did like this batch of 3, I was like, oh, this is going to be fast. And then as I was doing John Con, because it's just going to be battle, and we don't have to think about battle. And then it's like you're doing it and you're like, well, this would make things better. Oh, this would make things better. And then you work stuff, and you work with the editors more, and they have so many good ideas, and you're like, oh, let's fit this in. And you want it to be its best. And so then, when John Con's chapter came, like finished, I was really happy, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is much better than I thought it was going to be. So like, even if I'm thinking back to A Clash of Kings and the Battle of the Blackwater, which is like exciting and all, but do you really specifically remember what happened in each Davos and Sansa and Tyrion chapters? Like, I kind of remember the Davos chapter the most, and maybe the last Tyrion chapter where he's actually like fighting, but a lot of the build up and stuff, especially with like, you kind of forget, and it's like I was expecting it to be the John Con, Arianne, John Con chapters to be kind of forgettable, but that now, like, I finished that John Con, and it's just like, oh, I really like this. We get into John Con's backstory, and it's just.
Oh, speaking of which,
yeah.
I like that. So I did. I realized that I like reading, and no offense, I love you. You know I do.
Yeah.
I like I I like reading instead of listening to you read it because I read faster. And
Yeah.
I love that you threw in there with fake Aegon. The fuck I forgot now, but you called it, one of his lines was one of the titles of the books. Which was it? You
Oh, A
remember
Dream
it?
of Spring.
Yes, I fucking love that you throw that in there. I'm so tired of these clash of kings. Will we ever outlive this storm of swords? It was
That paragraph,
truly a
and I
feat.
forgot. It's funny because I last night I recorded my review of that chapter. What's funny is I'll go over it really quick, but
I love that you threw that in. Whoever threw that in there, props to them. If it was
oh,
you
I
or
mean
anybody else,
that was me. But the idea of, and I'll go over this when I release it. But the originally Aegon said nothing, like in the original version, and the editors were like, "Wait a minute, like Aegon has to say something. He's Aegon," and I was like, "Okay." So I made Aegon, like originally it was just like the Raven arrives and says march, and that was the end of it, and they're marching. Like they were leaning towards not marching, and then all of a sudden, you know, the Raven says march, and they march. And then, people were like, no, you've got to have Aegon say something. He's there. And it's like, okay, so we have Aegon say something. And then people said, no, wait a minute. You can't have Aegon be less bold than he was in the previous chapter. His character has to grow. It's like, okay. So then Aegon's like part grew. And then, so I wrote this paragraph, and then it got worked by the editors quite a bit. But I ended up pretty proud of it. Let me see here if I can get but there's so much here actually. So the full thing is that I think that puts an end to our discussion, announced Prince Aegon. The White Raven heralds the change of the seasons. Winter has returned to this land after many years, as has the Golden Company and the true king of Westeros. He rose from his seat. We are here to stay. So first off, that we are here to stay is a joke because he thinks he's talking about the Golden Company staying and the true king of Westeros staying, but the way he structured his sentence, the we are here to stay accidentally says that winter is here to stay. You see the joke here? Like, winter has returned to the land after many years, as has the Golden Company and the true king of Westeros. We are here to stay. He's accidentally said that the long night, that winter is here to stay forever. And then we are no longer exiles, cast-offs, or summer children. We've not come to huddle in castles, wait for spearmen, dream of spring. No, there's the joke there, dream of spring. We've crossed the ocean to dance with swords, claim our birthright, and rule with honor. And then all of this actually harks back to a Patchface prophecy about, in a Clash of Kings prologue, Patchface says, clever bird, clever fool, the shadows come to dance, my lord, the shadows come to stay. And like, oh God, because of the grayscale being the shadow from the House of the Undying and stuff like this, like they're like this paragraph, like there was a lot to like shove in here, but yeah, but I'm glad you at least got the or thought it was fun the
I love stuff. We were making fun of that for House of the Dragon. We were making fun of that because
yeah.
remember Viserys in the first episode, the feast line.
Yeah,
There.
it's true.
Yeah, so
It's true. Revenge of the Dares isn't that 70s. It's like Revenge of the Dares is the most 80s thing ever. Most 80s thing ever. It's let's see. The word problematic is overused, and I want entertainment to go back to the 90s and 2000s when you could say what you want. I know, like I understand that like problematic is silly because it's not really descriptive, right? It's you're saying like something has problems is all you're saying when you say something is problematic, and there's implications that it has problems related to certain social issues. Um, but that said, as much as problematic being like, and I've had people like in conversations with people saying like, don't you think what you're saying is problematic, and without any explanation, and you're like, well, what do you mean? But when I say problematic, like Revenge of the Nerds is not a situation where it's on the border. Okay, Revenge of the Nerds, the characters break into the girls' dormitory and install cameras so that they can watch them naked and undress. And then they take those pictures and they sell them, naked pictures of the women, and sell them at the festival. And at that festival, the character dresses up like Darth Vader, poses as her boyfriend, and goes in and has sex with a girl. So the movie is pretty bad. Like there's rape, there's you know revenge porn. There's all sorts of situations here in that
Can
movie.
I add an asterisk to what you're saying?
Yeah.
You could totally do this movie, but it would have to be a horror. It can't be a comedy. It has to be a
Mm,
horror movie, cannot be
yeah.
a comedy. One film you can't do anymore is gross out comedy movies like the early 2000s was kind of known for, like Freddy Got Fingered. I'm so
Mm.
glad those are gone because those are so fucking dumb. Those type
They'll be
of dude
back
bro
again.
movies,
They'll be back again.
yeah, I hope fucking like the dude. There's some like nice dude bro movies that are completely innocent, like Dude, Where's My Car? Whatever, like those are fine. But then the Revenge of the Nerds thing. If that happens again, that's definitely a like that has to be a horror from like A24 or whatever that the hell that production company's called.
Yeah, you'll never get it again. And keep in mind, like there's so many things, and it's almost too bad because like there's so many great parts of the movie, like the fundamental plot, like the fundamental like plot of the movie is kind of inspiring. Like there's like even though there's a lot of gay jokes about the gay character in the frat, they accept the gay character and he's a hero. And there's um he's one of the protagonists, and there's not many like gay characters that were portrayed as protagonists like back then. Even though there's a lot of like bashing there, but like there's a lot of jokes that just wouldn't land. I don't know. At one point, one of the protagonists, they're like, has anybody gotten dates for the party? And the one character's like, I've been cruising the high schools all day, and it's like you're like,
Oh,
and granted, the character's only supposed to be 18 or 19, but they look like they're all 30. Um, and there was this horrible system where, in order to get on the Greek council to get their dormitory back or get their house back, they they have to win this physical challenge at the festival, which of course the jocks are going to win because they're stronger. And so the fact that like the nerds come up with these really clever ways to win and then have this big inspirational song at the end that's really fun and gets everyone behind them it's like the movie is paced very well and has this big inspirational ending. It's just that, oh god, like this like the revenge porn rape stuff in the middle of it is really like hard on the movie, so it's in that sense very problematic. um there's some race stuff too that's kind of weird. The race stuff is like, so they can't, they're trying to get a national fraternity to sponsor them. And so they send their pictures to everybody, and all the fraternities reject them because they look like nerds. And the only one that accepts them is the one school they didn't send pictures to, which happens to be an all black fraternity. And of course, like none of the characters are black except for the gay guy. And so they arrive at this black fraternity, and they 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 don't want to accept them either because they're a bunch of nerds, but then they kind of explain how they're I think they go through the rules and they say, well, you're required to at least like observe us like having a party. And so they're like, okay, we gotta have this great party. And so the black fraternity heads like come and like watch them, and then the jocks end up like harassing them and like I forget if they end up like burning nerds or something on the field in front of their house. And so you're supposed to be reminded that this is a burning of crosses. And so the black fraternity feels bad that these guys are persecuted and accept them in as members of their frat. But at the same time, like comparing the plight of nerds to the plight of black people is also really weird. like there was definitely like a theme of the movie, like, oh, these people are persecuted, and the black fraternity takes them in because they're persecuted. But the plight of nerds is comparable to the plight of black people. There's a lot of weirdness. Oh God, I don't know. It's a really revolutionary movie, but at the same time, oh gosh, yes, problematic. Adam Smith is the father of capitalism. After all, the interest of each is the good of all. He was a big proponent of self-interest in his works. He was, but he was not a person. The thing that's different about Adam Smith, as opposed to say like modern academics, like say in the past like 70 years, in order to get popular in academia today, you have to have a shtick. You have to have a belief that then can have an ism on the end. You have to have like take an extreme position to make your signature. Adam Smith, he was a very balanced, reasoned guy. He didn't really have any extreme beliefs. And so when you start talking about like Smith doctrine, he didn't say any of that kind of stuff. He was very reasonable. And you just don't have those kinds of ideas now. In order for someone to be like, no one comes out with a book that's called like, and that wants to be a bestseller with like reasonable predictions of the future or like reasonable ideas that include balance, diet book is like, oh, you know what you should do for your diet? Like, reasonably like limit your calories and increase your exercise like to a certain amount. No, it's like cut out all carbs, like everything to the extreme, right? Smith lived at a time where like you were allowed to not be extremist. So when I say like, oh, he has interest in like the interest of each is the good of all, and a proponent of self-interest, like we all believe in self-interest to some degree. But he in no way believed that like the self-interest of the individual always led to the good of the all. Or he never believed that the self-interest of the individual was paramount to everything else. He only believed that self-interest frequently led to efficient markets. Like he was very specific. This is not Ayn Rand, where like Ayn Rand believed in like everyone should be doing the self-interested thing all the time, never do anything for anybody else, like kind of stuff. Like he was a reasonable dude who like all of us, like normal people, like everybody has little beliefs about like a libertarian as a political belief is extremist, but we all have like libertarian ideas that like, oh yeah, occasionally people should like, do what's best for themselves and have some freedom, and government shouldn't interfere all the time. Government should interfere some of the time. Like no one writes a book that says like government should interfere some of the time. Like it's either none of the time or like or they should completely take control or something. Like so it's you'll be really surprised if you crack open um, Adam Smith and look at the things he wrote. Like his quotes, like it's not like Adam Smith was for laissez-faire capitalism. He was not, which is what's kind of like weird. Um, he definitely believed like the government was a protector of like of like everything, but yeah, and that's the thing is when he uses phrases like frequently, he doesn't even believe it most of the time. Um, let's see here. When writing the fan fiction, how much will Bravos and Marine be written about versus needing to finish the story? Important consequential setting versus scale versus TV, Arya, Danny speedrun. I think definitely there will be more written about Bravos. Absolutely. Like we're going to get into a lot more on Bravos because the politics of what's going on with like the key holders and stuff like that is going to be kind of essential. So we're going to get a lot more on Bravos. I don't think Arya is going to leave. Like some people read the Mercy sample chapter and they're like, okay, Mercy's running for the like Arya's running for the docks and she's going to jump on and she's going to get back to Westeros, lickety split. That's not the plan. Like Arya's going to be in Bravos for a while. Maybe the entire Winds of Winter. But
Actually, real quick on the topic of Bravos, if you don't mind,
yeah.
Are you guys going to invent stuff that's not in the books? That's not. Oh in
yeah,
the series?
Absolutely. We've been doing that. Okay. Yeah, we've been doing that. Like for instance, in the Hotah chapter, we like added an invented line on like what Dornish law was. That is completely.
Yeah, you have to understand some of this stuff. Like, so this has been a problem that a lot of people have been having, and that I know you're reveling in. Some people can't tell what's original and what's George because you guys are like so well in line with came before. I remember what was the comment on one of the Arianne chapters where someone thought like you wrote it.
Yeah. Like when releasing like the first Elaine and the first Arianne and the second Arianne sample chapters, like some people were like what's funny is some people are like, I don't know, this doesn't really sound like George, and people are like, this is George, like
no, yeah,
yeah, it's a difficult balance because a lot of people think like, oh, something would never happen or that's out of nowhere or something, but you got to remember like George is going to throw those things in, like he's going to invent stuff to shock us. Like if someone were really to write a fan fiction, A Dance with Dragons, would Aegon and the John Con really be part of it? Like, would time travel really be part of it? Would any like fan fiction person be as bold as that? And the answer is no. Or if someone was going to do a fan fiction, A Feast for Crows, would they be bold enough to have it only be about Brienne, Sansa, Arya, Cersei, and Dornish and Ironborn? I mean, no one would be that bold. No one, except George himself. So, yeah, no, there's definitely new things that we write in there. Like John Con being into poetry. Or some people say, oh, that doesn't sound like John Con's personality. Well, we're making it John Con's personality, or so there's gonna be new little things like that.
Wait, John Con not being into poetry is like original? That's not George?
Yeah, that's us. We just made that up.
I would assume like he would be, and that's how he and Rhaegar got along because Rhaegar was into music.
I mean, it makes sense. I don't think anyone
makes sense. Yeah,
it makes sense. That it has that there's this like connection. There's very little written on John Con, like what he's like how he and Aegon grew up, like what was their raising situation? Was it on a boat? Was it in a village? Like we have no idea, and we just kind of like moved into the plot of like them trying to take over the kingdom, and we don't even know like their relationship. Like how long was Septa Lemore there? Were there more people? Like what was happening? So Um, let's see here. Will George R. R. Martin pull an HP and make canon open source? Um, I don't think so. George is very protective of his IP. He does not like making stuff. Um, he does
What? He
not.
doesn't like fanfics?
He doesn't like fanfics for the money business reason.
Hmm.
It's not that he doesn't like fanfic for some sort of like he said that like, oh, I think fanfic is a crutch, but what he really hates about fanfic is that it interferes with business, that you're making money off of, that you're taking his money, you know. um and it's weird because like in the same interview, like his publisher is next to him, and they ask the publisher, and the publisher's like, yeah, we don't care about fanfic, like that's just not on our radar. So like the actual publisher whose job is to make money like on writing was like less concerned than George was. But yeah, George is very concerned about that. But which is why like the fanfic doesn't involve any money. No monetization, nobody's getting paid. It's all volunteer. So we're doing like everything we can to steer clear of copyright kind of situations, because this is, if we were making money, it would be a copyright violation. So um greed is good. YouTube wouldn't exist without it. It's like anything else. Like, yeah, greed is good in a certain way. Like I think Adam Smith is correct that frequently self-interest can lead to the most efficient outcome, but self-interest does not always lead to the most efficient outcome. Which is why government is there to fix broken markets. And you could just, first day of game theory, you can look at the squares to show like situations where self-interest doesn't lead to the most optimal outcome. But there's a lot of these situations, and the government has that role to fix broken markets. So for example, like gasoline is really cheap. And the reason gasoline is cheap is because the negative externalities that gasoline has are dumped on the public. You burn it, that gas goes off into the air. You don't worry about it. That's a freebie that you got that you didn't pay for. So like the proper role of government is to measure the negative externality of that pollution and then put it back into the cost of the product. And then the product would be at proper market price, and so those little things like that where people get markets break, sometimes small, sometimes large. And what does cutesy mean? That's a good question. I thought it was an adjective. um but but wouldn't cute already be um the adjective? But there is something like different when we say like cutesy. Like we almost say like cutesy being like the artificial um adult desire to look cute at like a child. Like like Hello Kitty, like wearing Hello Kitty, or like an adult woman putting her hair in pigtails or something. um it's interesting though that like um the things that we use, there's a weirdness to the fact that like cutesy blends in with erotic, which is quite odd, right? Like that, but like for the most part it's just because it's a youth marker. So like there's various things that we associate with youth, like not having wrinkles is, or having hair is more attractive than not, because not having hair is an association with being old, wrinkles are an association with old. That's not the sort of thing you associate with like young, fertile, um, and sexual. And so people, when they want to look more attractive, try to get rid of their wrinkles, try to have hair, that kind of thing. Um, Women put on makeup to make themselves look more colorful and flushed because young people tend to have more color. Old people tend to be more pale and gray. Um, but you can there's a bunch of other weird ones like so like there's the question of why gentlemen prefer blondes, right? And um like around the world, like yeah, blonde hair, like people go crazy for it. And there's no like some people are like, oh, it's from like European influence, but it's not because like the colonial powers didn't really have blonde hair. Okay, the colonial powers are like the Spanish and the Portuguese, you know, like like the Swedes, you know, the people that are famous for being super blonde, like aren't exactly the colonial powers. So why is it that like everybody loves blonde hair? And it's probably that it's a youth marker that when kids are young, they have light hair, and as they get older, the hair darkens. Um, which is super gross when you start thinking like, don't kids' hairs like hair darken by like age 3 or 4? Yes, but we also like do the same thing with like, oh, like there's something very like there's porn for like girls wearing braces, and you're like, because this association with youth, or girls wearing pigtails or whatever, or short skirts, like these things are associated with youth, and therefore like they mark people. But this is the same thing with like cutesiness. So people use cutesiness as like a youth marker to try to be like more attractive. But Western entertainment needs to get back to an era that Japan never left. I don't know about that. I mean, Western entertainment has gotten really, really good in the past like 20 years, right? It's like gotten really like cerebral and intricate and complicated and
That's
things
a
like
very
that.
weird comment from someone who hasn't seen the latest episode of The Last of Us. I'm telling you, Preston,
Hmm.
if I were you, after what I just saw, you should be turning the stream off and running to go watch it.
Yeah,
That's going to
yeah,
be a
I know.
10
I'm
out of
I've
10
got to.
for you.
I'm watching with my wife, so I've got to
Oh,
wait for
okay.
when we're both free. But like, yeah,
If you don't give it a 10 out of 10, I'd be fucking shocked.
yeah,
I'd be
yeah. No, I
fucking
mean,
shocked.
the entertainment in the past 20 years has been fantastic. It's been just emotional. It's been hard hitting. Um, Japanese entertainment, and again, like I'm more familiar with anime than other stuff. A lot the other
Right.
Japanese movies I've seen that have not been anime have just been kind of they've been very weird. They've been very weird movies. But uh, it's like I know anime, but anime is such a small piece of Japanese entertainment, manga and anime. But it's I don't know. There's aspects of it that a lot of anime, like the thing is like any medium, there's good and there's bad, and there's a bucket load of bad manga and bad anime. So much paint by numbers, like kind of stuff. But I think it's like, and I think the paint by numbers stuff is when it's like the same characters over and over again. Like we can all, you kind of all know like the stock anime characters. There's there's always a character who's like super cutesy, who's like and then there's always like sassy character, and then there's always gruff man. The fact that like I can just go like that, and like anybody that's watched anime knows what I'm talking about. Like it's the same fucking characters every time, like it's there's a lot of repetition, and then there's a lot of great stuff about anime, a lot of complicated plots, a lot of detail, a lot of foreshadowing and stuff like that. But a lot of it's repetitious. Like, my God, like how often do the Japanese have to like rewrite the story of there's an apocalypse, and then of this new like futuristic great society like was built out of it, but it's corrupt and it needs to come down again. Like, how many times do they have to like write that story? Essentially the Akira story. Like it's just over and over again. So I mean, there's good parts and there's bad parts. But there's good anime and there's bad anime. But It can't all be Ranma one half, right?
I'll have to save this my anime rant for like when I start doing live streaming, because you're not wrong. You're
You
so
know what I'm
I just
talking about, though, right?
it's evolved a little beyond that. I just dropped one because it literally is the same shit. I was watching this one thing about. I'm not even getting into it. I'm just fucking getting upset already. I'm just gonna drop it.
Yeah.
You're right though. It's paint by the numbers of this bullshit.
Chances Rhaenyra escapes with a decoy with Laenor, like Laenor did at the end. Chances they could change it to make it a happy ending. That's an interesting idea. Though I don't know. I don't know if they do it. I think it's one thing to have like a random character like Laenor, but it's another thing to remove like the powerful like death of a character. Um, the only series that I've ever had that's done something that crazy, I guess I was thinking about Twin Peaks, where in Fire Walk with Me, he essentially goes back in time and removes Laura Palmer's soul before she's killed, and stuff like that. But I don't think that I think they're first just to have the powerful ending. Rhaenyra has to die. They all have to die. But yeah, no happy endings. No happy endings. Let's assure Preston that bald men are very nice looking. Well, I will say that women are not as picky about men's looks as men think they are. I know, and so which is a nice, fortunate thing for men.
Yes, it is.
That women care about things like your personality and your confidence and your ambition and like your sense of humor. Well, men can be really shallow, and like if a girl's hot, it's like I will tolerate so much. At least when we're young, we will tolerate so much. I mean, I'm being, of course, like overly stereotypical here, but
No, you are not. You are being very correct.
Oh,
The
quickly,
levels of patience I have.
Japanese TV is mostly bad. Japanese TV is so much like it's like you take a show and then you have it's kind of Japanese TV was into commentary YouTube before YouTube existed. Like they will have a panel of celebrities watching like a reality show, like Road Rules or Real World. And then the panel of celebrities will like stop and like talk about everything that's on screen and then they'll go back to it. Or like they'll have a panel of celebrities like talking about a cooking show. Like it's weird how like everything had to be like a panel of celebrities commenting on entertainment. And it's like, how do you become a celebrity in the first place? I don't know. But like it was really odd how often like the panel of celebrities was used, which is the YouTube model now. It's now like everything's about Hassan Piker watching a YouTube video and then commenting on the YouTube video.
Yo, but have you? I fucking hate that. Like the React shit. The
Yeah.
React shit is fucking trash. And Hassan, to rip on him for a minute here, that's all. That's all he does now. Like he'll insert one thing in there, and then he'll go, "Oh my god!" Like that's all. That's all he does.
But it's like when you stream 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for years, you run out of shit to say. So it's just like him eating and then going to the bathroom and then coming back and then, so it's so Japanese TV was like mostly bad. It's completely true that it was like they were doing React TV decades before YouTube, and that's all it was. It's almost like as if like the editing and music wasn't like let's say they're watching a reality show and like two characters are having a heartwarming or like heart-wrenching scene and the music's playing and like that the scene is supposed to be sad, for example. They'll then stop and the celebrities will be like, "Oh yeah, this is very very sad. Oh, I feel so much. I feel so bad. Oh yeah, yeah, I can't believe this is happening." Oh, and then they'll go back as if like the show wasn't already telling you how to feel. We have a panel of celebrities to tell you how to feel. Like, anyone watching Vinland Saga? I've heard this before about Vinland Saga. Somebody recommended it a while back. Do you know what I'm talking
That was
about,
me.
Carmine?
That was probably me because I've been reading the Vinland Saga manga for like the past 5 years. Very good. I just don't like the animation of the anime, but it's very good though. It's a very good recreation of Viking stuff.
Mm, mm, mm.
Golden Kamui, I have
Um,
or Kamaui, whatever, I have not seen.
yeah. Western entertainment is too politically correct now. I don't know. I disagree. I mean, I don't know what politically correct means. Do you
It
mean
means
like
whatever he doesn't like.
right? Is it just whatever you don't like? Is it too left wing? Because like I've gone on this discussion a lot. Like there's so many things about Western media that's incredibly right wing, insanely right wing, that you would never like have outside of America. Like um like I mean just thinking these real simple ideas of I bring up the abortion thing a lot. Like abortion is a very common thing, but how often do you really see abortion on TV? Yeah, it was in House of the Dragon, and I praised House of the Dragon. I was like, holy crap, they had an abortion. Like, or it was in Veep. Incredible, but how often do you have it? It's always like somebody gets pregnant and they have a warm supporting environment and she has the baby and like no fucking real world situation of like, oh really, you got pregnant and the guy disappeared and you don't have the money and fuck, you need to go get an abortion. Like that's never a plot. Like, something that's so fucking real world. Or the fact that like people struggling to make ends meet while working. Instead, like everybody's hanging out at coffee shops and everybody's fabulously wealthy, having done no work. Like this belief that like the structures of capitalism like are functioning perfectly is portrayed in almost all Western entertainment, right? That the structures of capitalism and the structures of the worker, like workers' rights are not needed because like, on my Rachel on her waitress salary can live in Manhattan and
Just
live a
thinking of that.
fabulous life. There's all sorts of these like little ideas or like um, that are very very conservative. Um, the nationalism, the war, the American soldier, how they're portrayed in media is always they're the hero, they're the hero, they're the hero. Even when they're portrayed badly, it's like it's understandable. Like how often like is the American military ever portrayed negatively in I mean Jesus, I mean Top Gun sequel came out this year. Like I mean there's so many things that are very very conservative about about uh, about Western media. I don't understand the politically correct. I mean, do you like if they hone in on something very specific, like, oh, is there more diversity representation with regards to like race? Okay. But they're also all specifically very like whitewashed um uh like representations. Like you never really have um it's always like an Indian American who like Aziz Ansari who like is completely assimilated. It's very rarely like an Indian guy like struggling with being an Indian and not fitting in America and like what it's like. It's so I don't really understand. Like people say this stuff like stuff's too woke or stuff's too politically correct, and I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, you know um
You know what it is?
oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt?
Yeah,
Um,
as good as it gets.
as good as it gets. There's a moment where his gay neighbor comes by and he
Hmm.
goes, yeah, and this is the F slur for homosexuals, and that caught me off guard because I'm like, oh, because you never hear that anymore. When they say woke, it means people not being able to drop that slur randomly and nonchalantly like they used to in movies.
Yeah, I mean, but that also, I mean, that's a reflection of society too. Like we don't use those terms anymore. You know, we don't use colored anymore. Like terms change, and they always have. So I also, it's like the of the time period. Like I don't know, and like what is politically correct. Like I don't know, like what politics like are being inserted that you know people disagree with. And what are they hoping for? Was entertainment really that great? Like in the '80s, because it wasn't. Like go back, try to watch an episode of Cheers, of the Cosby Show, um, of MASH, of Saint Elsewhere. It's not that great. It's not that great. Like the entertainment is so much better now. It's so much better now. Um, Capitalism is the honest system. Everything has a price, and everyone has to pay it, whether they can afford it or not. It's the best system for human use. Teaches people that nothing is free. It's the best. Um, the uh, the problem is with this is with this like general belief. Now this is the thing is you're what you're doing is you're trying to push like a moral good lesson that's coming from capitalism. Now, again, I'm a capitalist, okay, and I'm a capitalist because I believe that efficient markets are good, and that often like interfering and creating distortions when not necessary, just leads to deadweight loss and waste. But your statement here is saying that like capitalism is teaching someone a good lesson, um, and that everything has a price, and that uh, nothing is free and things like that. I don't know many other systems. I mean, obviously, you take something to an extreme, right? You have some sort of system where you just handing out stuff for free, and then people kind of expect it, right? But does capitalism teach people that everything has a price and that everyone has to pay for it? That's not really how we view it, right? Because like people that are super wealthy, um, the price relative to what they have is low. Um, and a lot of those super wealthy people didn't have to work very hard to get that money. Meanwhile, somebody else works very, very hard and to earn money and can barely afford something. And there's just like a lot of like ridiculousness. Like you can go to Southeast Asia or what, and Cambodia or something, and have sex with a woman for $3. Or and you could say, well, the market led to that. Yet over here, like in America, like $3 is what you might tip on a drink at a bar in New York City. For someone handing you a beer, like and like like when you really think about like price and value and work and all of these things, like is that really a good lesson? Um, like capital, like I'm not sure I'm learning a good moral lesson from this system. I'm not saying capitalism isn't a good system, but I'm not saying I don't necessarily see a moral good coming from it. Like I think everybody driving on the right in America is a fine system. That's great, but I don't see any like moral good coming from it. It teaches everybody that you know being orderly is great. Um, there's so much manipulation and so many ways to like make easy money and people ways to trick people and bubbles and stuff like this that it kind of teaches people that like that work is random. Like I don't know, like when I look at the capitalist system, like does it teach me like, oh, you know what I need to do? I need to bust my hump at McDonald's um to like rise. Like am I getting that lesson out of the American capitalistic system? No, I'm getting the message that in order to really rise in America, I have to know people. I've got to go to a good college. I've got to meet people. I've got to like do a resume claiming that I'm super smart, get into some sort of like business where I have to put in little effort to make lots of money. It doesn't really teach me about hard work. It teaches me about trying to game the system. Um, and that's what it's not, and not that like going to school and things like that isn't hard work. It is, but it's still a system of gaming. It's me looking at all of the options and saying what is the easiest, best way to win. You know, so it's not really about it's not really about teaching like the value of a buck or the value of a good day's hard work. It's about somebody sitting down like Littlefinger and being like, how can I game this shit? Which is why you end up with like these NFTs and people like that. They they're trying to figure out ways to gain to game it. Hot D had no abortion. It was Plan B or miscarriage. How is that a non-abortion? How is Plan B not abortion? I mean, it's a fertilized egg, right? I mean, isn't Plan B an abortion? Like, how is it not? Thank you, Randall. Thank you.
Someone asked you if you would consider running for office.
No, never. No. One, I've said too much shit that someone would like use on me later, and it
Yeah.
gotcha. But like two, when you run for office, you're a tool of like your constituents. Like if all your constituents are assholes, you've got to fucking do what they say, even if it's horrible. You know, like I'd like to believe that if you take a lot of those, crazy Republicans out of their constituents and you actually talk to them, they'd be more reasonable. But they do what they do because they have to. Um, isn't it just like not showing someone pooping rather than capitalism propaganda with the cost of living or abortion? It's almost too real to show. Um, no, because we show people getting their heads blown off all the time. We show guts and blood flying everywhere. Um, you know, so I think people like to see real stuff. That people like to see shocking stuff. I mean, granted, they sit there and they go, okay, well, what sells? But um, like what we see about I don't know, like, but that's the thing is if you're going to the system that what's on TV is just what the market provides, then what are people complaining about? Like clearly the market has led to a situation where we want to be seeing politically correct woke stuff. So like what is it? Like is there a conspiracy or not? Um or is it the market? I actually believe it's the market. I believe that like they put on TV what they think sells. And uh um see, by the way, I'm getting these things like Cosby Show's amazing. Are you high? Cheers is still pretty good. You say this, but go back and rewatch them. I mean, there's some moments here or there, but like there are shows I love in my heart, and then I go back and try to watch them. I'm like, no, this wasn't actually that good. Like Seinfeld, not that good anymore. And I fucking loved Seinfeld. Fucking loved Voltron. Voltron is horrible. He-Man is horrible. Fucking loved them. They're horrible. Like, you know. So I don't know. I mean, there's going to be some jokes here or there, but I don't know. I just think, um, uh, Cheers is fantastic. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying, bring it up and is it really entertaining? Now, some people still watch Friends constantly, so apparently Friends holds up. On my way to Cambodia. Oh, jeez. Yeah, exactly. Capitalism with a mix of socialism is the best option we have currently. Exactly. Um, the um, but what are we going to do? I think just I have everybody's heard me say this before, but like I have just the belief that um, that we have we have all these different systems on Earth that we can emulate, and Scandinavia is run the best. It's very clearly, objectively run the best. Let's just emulate Scandinavia, and then we can work on getting better after that. I'm not saying Scandinavia is perfect and there's not growth to go from there, but from the inferior American perspective, where Scandinavia is clearly better run, let's make our country more like Scandinavia. Once we get to Scandinavia, we can work on making it better. But, so. Can we say that Martin's drafts and show things that would happen in a previous timeline and the published works happen in the current timeline? That's pretty funny. Maybe.
Speaking of that, by the way, do you want to how do you want to handle like the new stuff that's not from G stuff? Because now that G stuff went to the Cushing Library, and I believe so G stuff is in my Discord server, and I think explained why he missed some of the stuff. I'll have to wait right here. Do you mind if I read it?
Sure.
I don't want to derail. Hi, this is G Stuff from Reddit. My library research was focused purely on the A Song of Feast for Crow drafts, while yesterday's post by Rehearsed Toast looked at some of the Game of Thrones drafts. The Plague subplot was from a Game of Thrones draft long before the drafts I looked at were written. Several people have told me they're planning their own Cushing Library trip soon, so within the next 6 months, I expect you'll have new draft secrets from all the published books, though I won't be writing them. So that's a shame, because I actually like G Stuff's analysis of it.
Yeah, his analysis is pretty cool-headed and reasonable.
So what do you want to do with the other stuff? Do you want to cover that separately? Because I thought this was going to be the final Cushing Library
well, let's
stuff.
do another short video. There's some interesting stuff about the map and stuff like that we can talk about. It'll be a shorter discussion, but yeah, let's do that.
I'm done.
Real quick, Plan B is not abortion. It doesn't work if fertilization occurs. I'm going to bring up, this is from the Mayo Clinic. So, morning after pill is a type of emergency birth control contraceptive. Emergency contraceptive is used to prevent pregnancy for women who've had unprotected sex who use birth control method has failed. The morning after pill is intended for a backup contraceptive only, not as a primary method for birth control. Morning after pills contain levogestrel. Why it's done. It says that, here we go. Morning after pills can prevent pregnancy on unprotected side, other because you don't use, there's something about, here we go. The drug terminates the established, keep in mind, the morning after pill is not the same as mifepristone, RU46, or abortion pill. So this we're talking about implantation versus fertilization. So where was it? I just saw it. Where's the other one? How to use the morning after pill. It says, if you have bleeding spot that occurs, this is because it can indicate a miscarriage or that the fertilized egg has implanted outside of the uterus. Oh, fuck. It was something else. Where was it? Because they talk about it preventing implantation, right? Yeah, it says it does not end pregnancy after the implantation. So it depends how you define pregnancy. So there's a fertilized egg. So the Plan B works in that it either prevents the egg from releasing, or it prevents implantation. But there's going to be fertilization. And so if you define pregnancy, some people define pregnancy as implantation. So you can say, well, okay, once pregnancy has happened, Plan B doesn't work, but Plan B works after conception. It just doesn't work after implantation. So, these are all these like little definitions. So like, for these people that believe that life begins at conception, Plan B is an abortion because it's preventing implantation of a fertilized egg, which is actually how birth control pill works too. I mean, birth control pill also uses that method. So like, but some people do define pregnancy at, the confusion comes is that some people do define pregnancy as the moment of implantation, but it does not, if the egg has already been implanted, Plan B will not work and you have to use RU486. So I have this clarifies everything, but Plan B is still an abortion. It's just not an abortion of an implanted. It can be an abortion of a fertilized egg, not an abortion of an implanted egg. So that's just subtle difference. So it's not. It works after fertilization. It doesn't work after implantation. Okay. You're still talking. I'm not going to talk much longer. We've been on here close to 3 hours. Can people actually see anything in the flames? Where is the ancient technology in burning sticks? I think people do see things in flames. I think that's actually happening. But so somebody's sending visions and somehow through the flames, probably time traveling Bran or whatever. Plan B is abortion. Well, I mean, in the same way. Okay, L is correct here. It isn't abortion in the same way taking birth control pill isn't an abortion, but both the birth control pill and Plan B like happen. There's fertilized eggs. So when these anti-abortionists start talking about life begins at conception, Plan B and the pill is on the chopping block, okay, because fertilization can occur. So that's why you can't, these like trying to find like these reasonable moments for being like, well, maybe if we define it here. No, they're going for it all. They're taking away, the right wingers are taking away all your birth control, because like birth control pill and Plan B, that after fertilization, just not implantation. Also, Tyrion disposes of Janos for control of the Watch. Tywin puts in Jaime's mate. Forgot his name. Adam Marbrand, I think is his name. Yeah, I mean, he wanted to get rid of whatever, a Littlefinger or Cersei crony and put in his own. But it's just such a silly plot because it's just like, how are you not focusing on Littlefinger? In fact, I mean, granted, Tyrion's supposed to be stupid. He spends all of A Clash of Kings like worrying about Cersei, and Cersei is not a threat, and he spends the entire book like worrying about her when he shouldn't, One isn't pregnant until implantation occurs. Depends on your definition of pregnancy. But like I say, like right wingers will claim that life begins at conception. So like talking to them about implantation, no right winger, I've never heard a right winger or an anti-abortionist say like life begins at implantation. Like I just don't hear that. I never hear them say life begins at pregnancy or implantation. Like I hear them saying life begins at conception. Like I've never heard implantation, So that's why they're going to go after your pills. They're going to go after the pills. But the thing is, birth control does work if fertilization has occurred, because birth control pills and Plan B work 3 methods. There is the mucus increasing on the cervix, which prevents sperm from entering. It works by preventing the release of eggs, and it works by creating something odd with the uterine lining, which prevents implantation. So the birth control pill works using 3 different methods at once, which brings its probability of success up. One of those methods is likely going to work. But so anytime you're using the pill, you don't know which method has prevented the pregnancy. Say your birth control pill prevents a pregnancy 1 month. You don't know which method did it. You don't know if it was the mucus outside the cervix. You don't know if it was the release of the egg. You don't know if it was the implantation, the preventing implantation. It was one of those things. The birth control pill uses a 3-prong approach. Did I make sure option A, based on your geopolitical experience, do you have any suggestions to fix the structure of the political structure? Option B, what is your favorite Dylan song and why? No, Shitmouth is a nice guy. Tate would not be Shitmouth, by the way. I just saw that. How would I fix the structure? Unfortunately, we need like just a lot. It's not an easy fix. We need like a long term like education reform in America, and we need. Well, I mean, the first thing I'd do is campaign finance reform. I think is probably the easiest way. I think you need to get money out of politics. Get politicians thinking about what's in their best interest, not what's going to line their pockets. And then, because even all of these like weird extremist right wing beliefs come from like capitalists like the Koch brothers, the Koch brothers in Wisconsin. So like even if you get those money donations out of the political system, campaign finance, and like set up a system where, like in Europe, like many European states, where like the parties get a certain amount of public funding, and that's it they have for campaigning, and not all these private donors, then I think that's the best thing. I tried to rewatch my favorite show, House MD, and it's quite sexist. At least I'm happy we hold different standards nowadays. It's funny how like House is based on this kind of like belief that like, oh, if you're really talented, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and it's just not true. It's just not true. No one would hire that guy in America at a hospital. Like bedside manner matters. Anyway, I got to go pretty soon. If time-traveling Bran sent Mama Direwolf, does that mean that the Starks didn't have the wolves originally, which means they never find the dead stag that sends Ned south? Yes. Definitely. And if we go, we have to start thinking about the original timeline. Like, the original timeline, Bran probably didn't fall from the tower. He probably went south with Ned, probably lived a completely different life. And it's a we don't know how he eventually gets north of the wall in the original timeline to make his fall in time travel, right? So it's a definitely Mama Direwolf like completely like changes the timeline. I mean, we have to imagine there was this original timeline where Hodor was a knight, and Bran was a man who walked around and went south, and all these sort of things. So who knows how in the original timeline Bran ever got to time travel? It's something crazy to think about. Like without Mama Direwolf, how everything would be completely different. But
nice what if video.
Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. If you have a fertilized egg that hasn't implanted, are you half pregnant? All of these things are like is like these discussions of like the complexities of reproduction. Like this is why like you're never going to find like a logical, a better, clearer place to start than birth. To just be like, when you're born. Like this is like it gets so weird. Like even when you start talking to people like, oh, life begins at conception. Really, what about twins? Like, oh well that doesn't count. Like, well, what, like it's all these like crazy things. So, it's right that these arguments are based on vibe or mainly like what somebody in their youth group told them. Like when you actually like, so people sometimes say like, oh, Preston, you should debate somebody like Ben Shapiro. It's like, he's probably very good at like debate. But the one topic I'm pretty good at is abortion. Like I could probably defeat anyone in an abortion discussion, but no, plan B is not an abortion. Take it from a doctor. Look, at this point, like these are you're talking about semantics here, okay? Like to a right winger, abortion, like life begins at conception. Therefore, anything that stops like something from proceeding after conception is an abortion. Okay, I understand that like there are different definitions of pregnancy, and some people define pregnancy as implantation. Okay, but that's also like I don't know, like very different from when you start using the word pregnant, when you start talking about tracking your weeks, because everyone starts thinking about fertilization. Like there's all sorts of these little things like that we use these different words in different contexts. So I'm sure abortion in a certain context, and when given the propaganda, I'm saying propaganda in not a negative sense, but like when telling people that yeah, you can use plan B, it's not an abortion, that makes people that are anti-abortion feel better. Like, oh, I'm not actually doing abortion. Okay. Like I get all of these like trying not to use these terms, or plan B like trying to market itself as not an abortion. But keep in mind, like in the mind of a right winger, logically speaking, using these terms like it kind of doesn't matter. It's all semantics. Like they believe life begins at conception. Everything post that should be illegal. Okay. So like in their mind, what an abortion is, plan B is an abortion. All right. You can like get into like, oh, implant. They're not in those weeds. They're not in those weeds. Okay. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These are all semantics. These are invented human concepts naming these things. Okay. So it doesn't matter, but like they're going to try to ban it all. Could time traveling Bran have an opponent, someone messing with a timeline, another chess master, or is he fighting against the universe? This is like the evil leapers from the future. But the thing is, like when you have two time travelers, how would they even know about each other's changes? That's the thing. Is like, wouldn't they make the change and then the other person would cease to exist and they'd be done? I mean, they kind of have these like the temporal Cold War in Star Trek, yeah, like the evil leaper from the future, like a second time traveler that they have to like battle against. Like I understand thematically having a second chess player, but I don't see how logically you could have two time travelers. Because once one time traveler does something, the other time traveler would cease to exist and not even know that the change happened. Like they wouldn't even be aware. But yes, yeah, I haven't quite finished, but I have been watching Dark, but I've just got too many other things. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone. I've got to get going. It's been 3 hours. Oh wait, I'll have a little treat for anyone that's stuck around this long. Hello, you're up. Hello everyone. Maybe we can make a smile here. His hair is stuck up. It won't go down, by the way. He's got this like permanent, permanent like hair that just sticks up. Don't know what to do. All right, everyone. I will talk to you later. Okay. Thanks for everything. Okay, bye.